SANDF, SIU, the DPCI, Mineral and Energy, and Environmental Affairs is fairly active, and a number of other departments, NPA. And that committee then operates with basically four legs. If we can go to the next slide, slide 8. Now, the operational mechanisms we've set in place to function on a 24-hour basis to ensure that we actively operate. We've established a joint operational center, or known as a MAJOC, which is a mission-specific operation center, and we're operating from Megawatt Park. And that job is operating on a 24-hour basis, and we track and locate all incidents across the board, from theft related to Eskom to assault issues related, all in the Eskom space, so that we can track and begin to keep our hands on all of it. And I will later on talk to all of that. And in that way, we can command, control, and coordinate all operation activities and ensure situational awareness, particularly. As indicated, the MAJOC is an extension of the NATJOC, and we cover the generation space, the transmission space, and the distribution space. And we'll talk to that a bit later. And as we say, we deal with that across the business value chain, even pre-generation, the coal supply, the transport of coal, the fuel supply, the messing, and the interference with the quality of the fuel. We monitor and look at that, and in the operations we'll refer to that. And as the National Commissioner would indicated, the purpose of that is that we have to have a different treatment to how we ordinarily would deal. Normally it would be a business it's a business matter, but because the business matter is closely linked to national security, we get involved across the whole value chain. The operation we refer to, we've called the Operation Simba, for better purposes. And the concept we use is a 5-pillar approach. It's the intelligence leg, the proactive leg, high visibility, security assessments, compliance evaluations, looking at the regulations, deployment of SANDF, amongst other things. Combating would be specifically to look at operations where we pick up information, there's activity going on, and we'll engage on that level. Then we have reactive or detection capability, which is the Hawks and the general detectives. And then lastly, we have communication that helps us to ensure that we're all up to date with where we are. The operational focus areas, as indicated, is corruption within Eskom, and that, though that falls squarely within the domain of the Hawks and the ID and SIU, they will refer to that specifically. The theft of fuel oil, the existence and operation of illegal or unregulated coal yards, the illegal and irregular trade in fuel and fuel oil, ghost vending, infrastructure crime like the theft of cables, theft of copper cables, conductors, transformers, and those matters. And priority, I mean, at this point, the value chain is extensively broad, so for this point, our focus for now is to look at how we can impact on matters that are directly affecting load shedding. And over time, we will deepen our extended cases. Eskom-related cases, we are separately from what the Hawks will be presenting and SIU, cases that would be of a wide range. We have got 1,660 Eskom-related cases reported from the 1st of April 2022 till the 30th of April 2023. 143 of these cases still under investigations, and we've made specifically, I think we've made a mistake there. The number of arrests is actually more. I will just talk 103 arrests. 103 arrests there. And Eskom-related cases that Eskom reported to the SAPS specifically, where they reported was 150. 143 of that is still under investigation, and 8 arrests have been made there. Next slide. An overview of other operational activities, but crucial to the Eskom space. Executed actions since December 2022 to date. We've visited and did operations at 154 coal yards, most of which were unregulated coal yards. That was done in joint operation with Environmental Affairs and Mineral and Energy. We did visits to power stations, especially 388 visits to 14 coal-fired power stations. And this is important because there's security services at each police station, at each power station. So part of what the national key, because it's a national key point, the police stations are obligated to visit and see that they're adhering to the standards and engage with the security regularly. So that is improved now. We've done a lot of that activity. The substations, which is one of our most vulnerable spots, and they also, a lot of them are national key points, but not all of them are. We did
General, just 1 second. Colleagues, for the ease of reference, the presentation, rather look at the hard copy, because the presentation sent last week has been updated. So the hard copy is the one which, if you look at the soft copy, you're going to find yourselves a bit lost. So I suggest stick to the hard copy. And so I'd request that you, there's a SAPS reshuffle here.
No, the minister was appearing.
No, it's on the light.
Okay.
All right, Minister, welcome. The General is just taking us through your presentation. So what I would suggest is that you move a bit slower then, because we don't have the ease of reference of soft copy. So colleagues, the hard copy is the updated one. All right. General, you can proceed.
No, thank you. As indicated, we've done a number of operations and visits and monitoring activities related to the Eskom space since we formed this operation. 338 visits to the 14 coal-fired power stations, because those are our most critical ones now linked to load shedding. So we visited a number of substations because we've seen that there's been a number of attempts there and activities where theft at the substations and creating vulnerability at the robberies at the substations. So we've done 1,470. We've monitoring of the electrical infrastructure, and that would be the transmission lines, the distribution lines, and to follow up reports that there's activity there, and we do and that's across the country. Compliance inspections at scrap metal dealers, 601 visits, and this was specifically to track the copper and the metals that we had picked up in the cases, to see if we were able to track that at scrap metal dealers, and to see if there's alternative spaces where these things are being offset. So that enables us to do that. We did environmental compliance management inspections with all the key departments at illegal and unregulated coal yards, wash plants, illegal mining facilities. 24 inspections were done there. Then we've done physical security assessments and audits in terms of the National Key Points Act at 6 power stations. The coal-fired power stations, it's a work in progress. We're still going to do more to ensure that we doubt those power stations, as is listed there, is Hendrina, Kendall, Tutuka, Matimba, Grootvlei, Kriel, and Matla. They are the ones that are currently the challenge, the ones under challenge, and the ones that are under severe strain. So the compliance inspections were to see if we can pick up anything there. Associated actions executed was to deal with, as we said, the second-hand dealers, and that we've done unregistered dealers or closed 118. Cases opened in relation to those matters, 96. Arrests is 354. J534, which is basically a notice to a person that we identified on the spot. We give a J534. Those were 676. SAPS 610, it was issued, and that's a written warning to a dealer that we find is not complying with the rules or not organizing his scrapyard in a way that we're able to do proper inspections. It was given a written warning. Searches conducted overall across the board was 10,000, and that was in the period of the year. And in specific cases where it picked up information of specific criminal activity, 20 search warrants were issued, and we executed those 20 specifically. The compliance inspections at scrap metal dealers, and they're important in the broader picture to ensure that we can protect the integrity of the whole grid. And that was 8,755. And recyclers, 1,463. Now, it is important to note that we have got 29,380 registered dealers, scrap metal and recyclers. So we're focusing on specific ones in that, and we thought we did okay there. Successes since the inception of the MAJOC at Megawatt Park, 210 direct arrests resulted from combating operations through collaborative efforts of law enforcement together with interdepartmental role players. The total value of item seized was 26,214,000, etc. And these includes Eskom aluminium cable, 39,916 Eskom's copper cable, Eskom batteries, 36 of Eskom transformers, coal trucks. Now, it's important maybe to understand these coal yards are literally full-blown operations. So we seize diggers and coal trucks and big operations, and that required us to set up secure facilities as a consequence of that operations. Which, as I said, excavators, dump trucks, tipper trucks, etc. In conclusion, there are indications that operational measures we have implemented have clearly disrupted the activities of criminal syndicate. Important that we say disrupted. We're not out of the woods yet to say that we've destroyed them, but we've disrupted their ability to operate as freely as what they did before. We've seen a steady decrease in crime reported in the generation environment. That has become evident. What we've seen, however, there's been an increase in the distribution part of it. In other words, where at local level we've seen there's an increase there. And it could be because we're focusing more and we're reporting more, we're getting more reports. So that could be the reason for the increase, but we're noticing an increase and we're honing in on that space. So that's across key provinces at local municipal level. We're picking up on those things. We've engaged with SAPS station commissioners, provincial commissioners, at specifically the spaces where we have national key points and power stations, where we've briefed all those station commissioners, rebriefed them on their on their responsibilities and their legislative responsibilities, and tracked and monitored to ensure that they do the visits, they do that activity, and we've seen the security improve overall. We've also seen that the undetected closure rate of dockets have also declined. So, because as a result of increased monitoring, we can see that the dockets there's improvement in the quality of the investigation and not just closures. As the committee noted that we've been dealing with the matter before the meeting with Mr. Director, and we're still continuing after that, and we will still continue for a while. In conclusion, I want to say Nationally, just generally, the police has established 20 economic infrastructure task teams, 18 at district levels, 2 at provincial level. In February 2022, and there's a brigadier appointed to head all of these infrastructure task teams, and it is our contention as these teams are taking hold and their activities are improving, we will see a far more better, efficient operation to protect the infrastructure and to target the criminal activity related to it. SAPS response to the NACOM and the energy adjoints through this specific work stream is another indication that the National Commissioner, when the issues were raised with him, took it up fairly seriously and appointed the committee, and then in December appointed a new command team to ensure that we can get, and what we can say with certainty, that the relationships and the partnerships have improved considerably within the various departments that are tasked with this responsibility. Eskom itself is part of the committee. They sit in our committees, they're part of it, and but they also asked to present and they interrogated when required, but they're part of the problem solving method. I rest. Thank you, National Commissioner. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning to Minister of Police, General Kele. We'll now go over to the DPCI presentation, Chair. Thanks.
I have to now shift. This reshuffle arrived with Minister Grell. All right, so let's take all presentations at once, and then because issues may be cross-cutting. So, General Libya, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, the Honorable Minister of Police, the Honorable Deputy Minister of Police, the National Commissioner, the head of the SIU, and the rest of the colleagues in the meeting. From the DPCI, the presentation will be flashed through. I will start with the presentation outline, which speaks to the introduction. I will slightly just show the mandate of the DPCI, the reporting requirements, in terms of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act of 2004, that will be shown in slides 5 to slide number 14. Then I'll come to the investigation linked to Mr. Durator, that is the issue relating to Section 34, after it was received by the DPCI from Mr. Durator's attorneys. Then I'll just show an overview of other Eskom-related cases that are being investigated by the DPCI. Then I'll conclude with the recent successes that have appeared on the media highlights. Those will be in slide number 19 to slide number 26. In the introduction, the DPCI received an invitation from the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, COPA, aimed at establishing if allegations of corruption and fraudulent activities and other maladministration issues at Eskom were indeed reported by Mr. Durator to the law enforcement agencies, and what the case numbers are, and to what extent these alleged reported cases have received attention. So the purpose of this presentation is also to respond to the committee's request and the application of Section 34 reports in terms of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act 12 of 2004, which we normally call the PRECA, as well as the process and the matters dealt with by the DPCI. Coming to the slide of the mandate, which we normally repeat so that we can be reminded that in terms of Section 17D of the Police Act, the mandate of the DPCI has been outlined there. I will not be reading those activities that are listed there, but I've just highlighted the issue of Section 34 of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, which will be reflected under Section 17D1, A, small letter, capital letter A in bracket. That is the one that specifically deal with the issues that Mr. Director shall have highlighted. The rest is the normal mandate of the DPCI, and one can clearly see down there on the sketches, schematic representation of the main focus of operational units. That is the serious organized crime investigation in the left block. In the middle block is the serious commercial crime investigation. And on the extreme right is serious corruption investigation. It is at that extreme right column where the component that mostly deal with this Prevention of Corrupt Activities Act reside. The next slide, we will not be going to the link of now, but in terms of Section 34, it appears on the internet. So if one was to ask Section 34 or DPCI reporting mechanism on internet, it will take you to a page where you can be able to view all the documents that are captured under Section 34. Moving to the next one is the reporting requirements in terms of Section 34 of PRECA. There is a duty to report that is specifically indicated in Section 34. This section places the duty on certain persons to report certain offenses, and the failure to report constitute an offense. What is that which have to be reported in terms of this specific section? There is a list of matters that need to be reported. It is important to note that those matters will be relating to corruption, matters related to the Chapter 2 of PRECA, the common law offenses that shall have been listed. Those include theft, fraud, extortion, forgery, uttering of forged documents, and the uttering thereof. What is critically important is the amount that should be involved in order that these offenses that one is talking to are reportable. So any offense that shall have been listed above, where the amount involved is 100,000 rand or above, that is the offenses that need to be reported. Who must report these matters? That is the next slide, number 7. According to this Section 34, subsection 1 of the Act, any person who holds a position of authority as defined in subsection 4 of the Act, who knows or ought reasonably to have known or suspected that any other person has committed an offense in terms of Section 3 to 16 or 20 to 21 of the Act, or the crime of theft, fraud, extortion, forgery, or uttering or a forged document involving an amount of 100,000 rand or more must report such knowledge or suspicion or cause such knowledge or suspicion to be reported to a police official in the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation. That is how the Act has been crafted as amended in 2012. Section 34, subsection 2 of the Act will provide that any person who fails to report such corrupt activity will be guilty of an offense. And we just highlight that specific persons need to be reporting this. This include the Director General or head or equivalent officer on a national or a provincial department. In the case of municipality, we're talking the municipal manager appointed in terms of Section 82 of the Local Government Municipal Structures Act of 1998. Any public officer in the senior management service of a public body, any head or rector or principal of a tertiary institution, any manager, secretary, or director of a company as defined in the Companies Act. This includes those members of a close corporation as defined in the Close Corporations Act of 1984. The executive manager of any bank or financial institution, any partner in a partnership, any person who has been appointed as a chief executive officer or any equivalent officer of any agency. So those are a list of people that are expected to be reporting.
General, I wonder if we can go to slide 15, because I think you've established for us that Mr. Director is part of that cohort of people who must report. I'm just trying to manage time. So if we can substantively go to slide 15, because that presentation was circulated before. If members want to refer back in the question session, then they can to the previous slide. So colleagues, can we take the preceding slides as read and as presented and go straight to the substantive issues on slide 15? But you're free to go back in the question session if there's an issue you want to raise in the facts that the General was just presenting to us for context. Over to you, General.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Slide number 15 refers to the investigations linked to Mr. Director. There are currently 3 known investigations linked to Mr. Director, namely an alleged poisoning case in which Mr. Director is a complainant. This I will not detail it, but he is the complainant in this matter. The second one is alleged failure to lodge a Section 34 report in terms of the PRECA, as I have already outlined, in which Mr. Director is cited as a suspect by Mr. Musi Maimani. And lastly, a report in terms of Section 34 of PRECA submitted on the 25th of April 2023 by a firm of attorneys on behalf of Mr. Director. It is important to note that this is the first Section 34 report that was reported to the Central Reporting Office on behalf of Mr. Director in relation to Eskom corruption allegations. It was received a day before Mr. Director appeared before the Standing Committee on SCOPA. When one looked at the report submitted to the DPCI and a report submitted to the SCOPA, the difference will come in the heading that this one is being reported to the SCOPA, this one is being reported to the DPCI. The rest of the content are more or less the same, except that in the report that is directed to the DPCI, there shall have been an omission to refer it as been reported to the committee. So it's the same report, but one directed to the DPCI and one directed to the SCOPA. The following slide is just an indication of acknowledgement of receipt, which was communicated to the attorney. That is expected of us that when we receive a report, we must acknowledge and provide the reporting official with a reference number for the purpose of follow-up. Coming to the investigations in the next slide is just to indicate that the DPCI, through the provincial head of Mpumalanga, has reached out to Mr. Durator immediately after his media interview to ascertain information firsthand. It's a courtesy call. It's not necessarily supposed to be done before an individual report. Mr. Durator declined to meet the officer, but referred him to his lawyer, who promised to talk to the officer. But unfortunately, the promise to come back to the provincial head did not materialize. So that is where we ended with the reporting from Mr. Durator, and the rest of the investigation will continue. In the next slide, we just show some of the investigation that we have been dealing with. For some time, we have been dealing with matters emanating from the Eskom, or where Eskom is the victim. So in this slide, we provide that the overview of the investigation conducted by the DPCI. The matters that are currently on the court roll, there are 27 cases that are currently on the court roll. These relate to 67 individuals that have been arrested. There are other matters that are still with the NPA for decision, which is normal process that when we have concluded the investigation, we table this before the National Prosecuting Authority to make a decision. There are also other matters that are currently under investigation, which are 60. And there are also inquiry files which at some stage might become case docket, so those are 17. That is the current workload that the DPCI is seized with. In the following slides, which I will not read, but I will quickly just indicate from 19, these are the matters that are appearing regularly on the media, which shows that there is work that we constantly do. One can just see the amount involved in the first one on the left-hand side involving Mr. Tlagudi, that has been on the court rolls for some time. We are just waiting for one individual who escaped the country and is sitting in UK to be extradited to come and join so that a trial can start. I think on the middle one will see where they say Hawksnap Eskom scalps in Mpumalanga. If one reads that one on the internet, you'll see the number of arrests that have been done relating to Eskom, as well as the prosecution and some conviction. The former Eskom administrative clerk sentences, and then there are others that have also been directed to pay back what they have earned, but they will be paying back in installment. On the left-hand side, the installment is to be paid until the 1st of April 2027. On the right-hand side, one can see also 4 accused from Eskom that have been arrested relating to the Duva power station. But the details below on the following slides, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members, I think the members can read, but these are also appearing on the media space. There one can see the number of officials from Eskom that have been sentenced. And then I am moving to the next one, is the Tlhagudi matter that I was referring to. The amount involved here is huge, 745 million rands. Coming to the next one, 14.7 million rand. I think by yesterday the other one was added to this case, but it happened after we have submitted the reports. You also look at the former financial controller and accomplice sentenced here in relation to 34.9 million of Eskom fraud, where 53 counts are involved. The sentence is at the bottom, one can see 20 years direct imprisonment, which shows the seriousness that the court also look at this. The ghost vending syndicates, we have always been dealing with this long, and a number of them have been arrested with the vending machines, and I think that it is a matter that the Eskom may want to find a better way of designing this instrument than that when it is stolen, a thief must not be able to generate electricity out of that stolen gadget. Because if it is stolen and is still able to generate electricity, then Eskom will be losing. So also the diesel, as the last one that they also steal diesel, and I think that 500,000 worth of diesel was also stolen. In conclusion, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members, I would like to say that the DPCI shall at all times enforce the law of the Republic without fear, favor, or prejudice, and as the circumstances of any particular case may require, in accordance with the Constitution and the law. I thank you.
Right, thank you very much, General. General magni prefix noma ne suffix it suffices. National Commissioner.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. Those are our two presentations. Basically, the problem of Eskom is mainly at three areas that you find there, which is generation, distribution, and transmission and distribution. So at generation you find quite a sense of lawlessness, which was dealt with, especially the presentation of Jacobs. The other part is a serious organized crime, which General Lebeya gave that presentation. So basically we are approaching it from those two angles. So I can hold you there. Thanks, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. Can SAPS stand by and we take the SIU so that we've got the broader picture? So Mbuyisa Makai, General. Right, Advocate Mtivi, over to you, sir, for your presentation. Again, I'll request the same, that we go straight to the substantive issues. Over to you, Advocate.
Now, Honorable Chair, thank you very much. Honorable members of SCOPA. I also greet the Honorable Minister and the Honorable Deputy Minister, National Commissioner, Head of DPCI, and my colleagues. Honorable Chair, we will be presenting this presentation to the Honorable Committee, and we virtually just maintained the content as we presented in January, and just showed where there has been traction or changes and some of the actions that have been indicated. So in the interest of time, we'll probably not go through each and every slide, but we will page through slides and indicate where there has been changes since we last appeared at Scopa. But the important part just really to point out is that now over and above the corruption focus, which my colleagues has indicated, which SIU also looks at, there is maladministration part, which we also look at. Maladministration and malpractices, which our legislation enables SIU to look at, and some of those aspects would appear in terms of where we recommend systemic improvements to the Eskom management, and then we will also cover the pertinent issue of the reporting by the former CEO of Eskom. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Mr. Lekgetho, who will go through the presentation, honourable member. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Advocate. Thanks, honourable member, and thanks, honourable chair. Thanks, Minister, Deputy Minister, National Commissioner, and everybody present here. I will be flighting through the presentation, and I'll skip some of the slides where there hasn't been any change. As Advocate indicated, we have tried to highlight the changes in red. So I'll just go through each and every slide and able to highlight that. As you can see, I'll skip here. Let me go and start where the present status come in. As you know, Honorable Chair, we are investigating the conflict of interest within Eskom, and as reported previously, you can see in the red, that's where the action has been taken, and the movement here is in relation to Eskom, where they've taken action against some of the members that have conflict of interest. You can see there that there's 123 matters finalized, and they are finalized in this way, where 73 were found guilty and 18 not guilty, and there's 13 outstanding that they need to finalize. Then in terms of conflict of interest, also relating to failure to submit declaration form, there also we've got 5,438 matters finalized, and out of that, 1,564 were withdrawn, 3,879 DC were finalized, and there's 21 outstanding. Then in terms of the conflict emanating from whistleblower, we've got 12 which were referred, and that's how they were finalized. 9 were found guilty, 1 not guilty, and 2 resigned before the implementation of the disciplinary. Then in terms of lifestyle audit, there we have there hasn't been any changes also, as we have presented previously at Scopa. Then when we come to investigation pertaining to coal supply agreement, the first one is the coal supply agreement relating to Tageta Brakfontein. Here there hasn't been any changes. And Tageta Optimum, there's no changes here. And let me move where there's changes. And with regard to coal supply agreement, the investigation, here the only changes, the investigation is ongoing, Chair, whereby we have requested more information from Eskom so that we can able to finalize our investigation. That relates to all the coal supply agreement investigation. That's number 1, mine 1, mine 2, mine 3, and mine 4. Then with regard to the matters relating to coal supply agreement, also relating to SIU versus Zulu, there hasn't been any change. Remember here we've made 15 NPA referrals against various individual and company, including 2 Eskom employees. The investigation is ongoing here. In relation to diesel procurement also, the investigation is still ongoing here, where we are busy getting information from Eskom so that we can able to wrap up some of our investigation. Then if we go to slide number 32 relating to Bell project, here in terms of the Bell project relating to Kusile, there has been some movement where we have finalized 13 referrals for disciplinary, whereby out of those referrals, From Eskom, they've implemented the disciplinary where 8 were dismissed, 5 resigned, and there's 1 pending where the member is currently suspended. And with regard to NPA referrals, we have referred further 103 referrals to Eskom pertaining to some of the members that conflicted themselves in terms of the Bell project. Then if it's relation to ABB matter, the court papers in this regard have been filed on the 3rd of April, and we wrote to the Deputy Judge President on the 5th of April and requested for a special allocation of a judge to hear the matter. We are waiting for the feedback from the Deputy Judge President in this regard. In regard to Tenova, there isn't any changes. SIU versus Tlakudi matters, there's no changes. And this matter is the one that reflected on the presentation by the Hawks that they are busy investigating them. And State versus Moyo, the SIU has assisted the AFU in confiscating and freezing various assets of Ms. Moyo, which she acquired with the proceeds of crime, as well as significant assets held by Tamukelo and its directors. Then with regard to cloud computing, the progress is that paper has been filed in the special tribunal. SAP are expecting to file their answering affidavit on the 12th of May 2023 as per the judge case management directive. Then in terms of the engineering and project management consulting services, that is in relation to Impulse International, Eskom is defending both matters and also lodged court counter proceeding to have the contract declared invalid. And this procedure is still pending, but are currently deadlocked by the fact that the sole director of Impulse passed away and the company remained incapacitated because the placement director that is to replace the company has not been appointed by the executor of the deceased estate. The SIU entered into a discussion with Eskom about the possibility of the SIU to join or intervene in such cases to try and bolster Eskom cases, but will do so if its proposed intervention will add significant value to the litigation and if it is cost effective and efficient to do so. Then the SIU is, in terms of the same matter, SIU is playing an active role in assisting the ID to investigate certain aspects, which also resulted in the AFU obtaining preservation order. SARS, as preferred creditor, has claim of alternative of approximately 230 million against Impulse, where SARS was only able to recover approximately 100 million. Although the SIU will keep the discussion open between the SIU and Eskom, it seems as if it will be not cost effective or efficient and will also not add significant value for the SIU to join or intervene in this pending litigation. But however, we're still observing to see what is it that will be the outcome of this litigation. Then next one, observation. Observations still stay as they are. There hasn't been any changes regarding the modus operandi or the systemic recommendation that we have outlined previously relating to Eskom. Then the summary of the outcome, those are the ones that are outlined there relating to conflict of interest. We have done 135 and 14 NPA referrals for individuals. And declaration of interest, we have done 5,452. Whistleblower from report, we have done 12. Coal procurement, disciplinary, we have done 1. NPA 15. And several, you can see there the distribution where there's the one contract has been set aside to the value of 3.7 billion, and one which related to damage claim has been instituted relating to 734 million, and one case has been instituted against former Eskom executive and board member and private company to the value of 3.8 billion, and one contract to the value of 6.5 billion has been terminated, and one preservation and forfeiture order has been obtained in the special tribunal to the value of 11 million, and 2.7 claim instituted against former employee of Eskom. In terms of bill project, disciplinary referrals, we have done 14, and NPA referral, we have done 103. And in terms of the civil, we have done 1 matters being instituted in the civil special tribunal to the value of 105, 1 relating to pension to the amount of 24 million, and several other matters are in the process of being filed in the special tribunal. And 1 matter, last one, relating to SAP, where we have done 13 NPA referrals for the companies and individual, and SIU has filed papers to the value of 1.1 billion for the contract to be set aside. Then I'll hand over to Advocate Mutibi to deal with the new allegation and update on the matters under discussion. Thanks.
No, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. Honorable Chair, as we indicated, the presentation was really presented before, and my colleague may probably have really speeded up in terms of the areas of improvement, but we continue to work closely with Eskom management to ensure that areas that we have referred for their action are executed and implemented. Systemic recommendations in terms of the improvement of the administration, because part of what we have found is that there were areas of maladministration that needed to be corrected. So we continue to work with them in that regard, and the board in particular. On the new allegations, which start on slide 55, we've been engaging with Eskom as well, and of course emanating from the state capture report. These were included in the implementation plan that the President submitted to Parliament, and we are a proclamation has been processed to cover some of those areas. My colleague indicated that we continue to collaborate with our colleagues in the asset forfeiture unit to ensure that we act speedily in areas where we need to effect consequence management in terms of freezing assets and ensuring that where appropriate those assets are forfeited to the state. Slide 56. As we were preparing and indicating what the committee needs to really understand, with regard to the allegations by the former CEO of Eskom, we indicated previously that as we investigate from time to time, we engage with the Eskom management. This is the stakeholder relations that we do ordinarily as part of our investigations. So in this case, since the commencement of our investigations at Eskom, the SIU met with the former CEO of Eskom several times and other senior officials on a regular basis in order to give them the update on the SIU investigations so that they understand when we issue the invoices for payment what the outcomes would be. The SIU also provides a written monthly report on the status of its investigations so that they can have it on their record. As part of our continuous engagement with Eskom, one of the matters regularly discussed is some of the areas that require investigations. And in this case, the former CEO has actually on several occasions written to the SIU and requested the SIU to undertake specific investigations, including the fact that we actually processed a proclamation to cover some of the areas, and that proclamation was issued recently, which covers all of the stations at Eskom. So this really indicates the extent to which we work closely with the CEO and SIU management. The last bullet point there just really indicates that the CEO himself attested to this close working relations. Slide 57. Right, now the allegations made by the former the CEO of Eskom were never brought to the attention of the SIU, by either the former CEO or other Eskom officials. It's clear, of course, as presented by my colleagues, the head of the DPCI and my colleagues at SAPS, that these matters were reported to DPCI. Now, what we did, of course, is after the publication of this interview that the CEO went through, we made several attempts, as we deemed it duty-bound, to contact the former CEO. However, our contacts were to no avail, as he did not respond to our calls. We applied for a new proclamation based on our assessment of State Capture Commission, as I indicated, and the findings and recommendations, and the proclamation is being processed currently. We are continuously engaging with officials from Eskom in order to scope matters requiring further investigation. So the SIU first became aware of the existence of what's called an intelligence report on the morning before the CEO was due to appear before SCOPA, I think on the 26th of April this year. The investigating team immediately requested a copy of the report from Eskom officials, as it was important so that we access it and deem appropriate to go through it and see matters that requires further attention. And we were advised by Eskom on the 5th of May that Eskom is not in possession of that report. In terms of Section 34, of course, I will not really go through this. It was covered appropriately by my colleague, the head of DPCI. Now, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, as I indicated, that part of our mandate is to ensure that we investigate maladministration and malpractice. On slide 58, we just indicate that, amongst others, it is really our interest to seek certain clarifications and answers to certain questions in terms of what has transpired here. So we really just indicate that we would need to understand who authorized the appointment of the private investigating company that the former CEO referred to. And why would Eskom appoint private investigating company when the allegations could have been referred to the SIU or to the DPCI or State Security Agency for investigation? Whether the report of the private investigating company was handed to Eskom and presented to the accounting authority, which is the board. Now, if the report was so presented to Eskom or accounting authority, we would definitely want to have access to that report to consider it for further investigations that could be required from a recovery perspective and probably from maladministration and other, of course, from a corruption perspective. Now, the other issue is, how was the private investigating company paid or even appointed? We'll need to understand that. If the investigation report or the investigation itself was paid by third parties, then who would be these third parties? Without really questioning the credentials thereof, as a matter of comprehensiveness, we would need to understand that part. Now, the other important question is whether the payment by Eskom to this private investigating company was budgeted for, if paid by Eskom, that is, budgeted for and or authorized by the accounting authority. Whether the outcome of the private investigating company investigation is being acted upon, and if so, how is it acted upon and by whom? Well, it has come to the attention of SAU that the said report found its way into the public. We really just assumed, and that this really will need to be looked at in terms of how the report found its way into the media, who leaked it, and so on. So this would be, amongst others, some of the considerations we will have, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. Thank you very much. That's the end of our presentation.
Right, thank you very much to Advocate Mtibi and the SIU team. Right, Minister, earlier on, prior to your arrival, we had given an opportunity to the DM if there was any opening remarks. There was none. I would assume that can we go to questions, and if there's anything you'd like to add, you'll come in at that point, unless there's anything specific that you'd want to place before us now before we go to questions.
Thanks, Chair. Absolutely none. The DM had all the authority to lead the delegation, so we don't have issues. Thanks.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. Ubabsomo ngesikhathi nifika ubhekethi siqala kanjani engakafika umkhumbuze enye indoda. All right, let's go to Honorable Hadebe, Honorable Somyo, Honorable Van Minen, Honorable Siweya, Honorable Lis. But I think Honorable Mkonto. All right, perfect. All right, I think let's just see how we're doing for time. I think if we can be pointed with our questions, we can do one member's full question set and be done. Right, Honorable Hadebe with an H, over to you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. Let me proceed straight to my question, Chair, for the sake of progress. To the report made by SAPS, Chair, the presentation has already confirmed that indeed meetings were held with Mr. Director on the 4th of June 2022, as well as on the 5th of July 2022. However, Chair, what is concerning is that the report is saying there was no specific information containing elements that would enable the SAPS to open criminal investigation. Secondly, reference to criminal activities within and related to Eskom was always generic and more strategic of content rather indicating trends. Now, Chair, I'm saying this is concerning precisely because in the interview conducted by Mr. Director, he has raised a different, complete set of narrative. I would like to get an understanding whether or not what has been contained in that interview is not contradicting the report. Chair, let me narrate what Mr. Director stated on the interview. He said, when asked what was the response of the high-level member of government and NPA when he approached them with evidence of corruption. Now, Mr. Director's response was as follows. We had one meeting at Mecca Park with senior officer right at the highest level, as well as SSA representative, where Mr. Director shared chapter and the verse of what he found. The general at SSA and other colleagues were suitably aghast and said, "This is completely unacceptable. We will immediately start acting on this." However, Mr. Director went further to say nothing was done till the day of the interview. And he now starts to question, is this incompetency or is there an attempt to somewhat sweep things under the carpet? Now, I'd like to, Chair, furthermore, the submission that we received, I think, on the 24th, says, and Chair, I want to read. I attended a meeting with the net joints and SAPS where I shared high-level concern about corruption and theft in Eskom with the National Police Commissioner and his staff and offered to make available the intelligence to designated individuals on the same day I reported the findings on the stakeholder representative, the Minister, Private Gordon. So I'd like to get an understanding, Chair. Did Mr. Director submit sufficient information that warrants the immediate action and intervention by SAPS, as he has alluded both on his interview and the records before us? 2, General, did you make an undertaking to act immediately and designated a brigadier to this case? That would be my first question, Chair.
Please put the full set of questions and then we'll get a response. And then I'm just trying to manage time. So your full set of questions.
All right. My next question, Chair, I would like to get an understanding in relation to section 34, subsection 1, that of preventing and combating of corrupt activities, whether or not in the evidence before you, did the group CEO meet all the reporting requirements of reporting case related to corruption as per section 31, section 34, subsection 1? Thirdly, Chair, did the group CEO at any particular point in time make indication of a particular high-level politician involved in this allegation of corruption? And what was done in relation to this high-level politician involved in the allegations of corruption, as he stipulated that he informed the minister? Is SAP, SIU, and the Hawks in possession of this information? The issue, Chair, that pertains to this intelligence report, I'd like to get a confirmation again from the advocate, because in the interview it appears as if issues and matters related were raised before, and as I've indicated, the impression that was created is that nothing has been done by our law enforcement agencies. Please confirm the date when you were made aware of this in relation to the meeting of the 4th of June and the meeting of the 5th of July 2022, and till the time where this was made public, and the steps taken by Mr. Director to ensure that such a report receive the attention it deserves, so that we can get a clear understanding, Chair, even though you have already highlighted on your presentation, but I want to confirm for our record purposes so that we are clear that this question was asked. We don't want to take it as read this point in time, because we are dealing with a very sensitive matter. So, lastly, Chair, the meeting that were highlighted, the one of the 5th and the 4th of June and July, do you consider that such information, okay, first and foremost, was that information shared verbally or was it in writing? 2, do you consider such an information as having met all the requirements and the reporting requirements of Section 34, subsection 1 of Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities? And if you do, please, over and above what we have heard, are you in a position to produce relevant evidence that complement that indeed such section of the Act has been met by Mr. Director? If it were to be proven indeed that such minimum requirements were not met, would you be in a position to advise this committee on what steps ought to have been taken to ensure that those that are entrusted with leadership position act in the best interest of the state and own entities? Thank you, Chair. Let me pause there, unless you would allow me to continue with my question.
No, I'll let you pause there. All right, let's get responses.
You see, Chair, I can can sense the mood that.
All right, let's get
others a
responses, and then once the responses are done, we'll go to Honorable Somyo. So responses to that first set of questions, you will take them as per they were relevant to yourselves.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson and members. Yeah, the code that or what is in the presentation, that there was no specific information. What we refer, Chair, is that Mr. Director was reporting to say, yes, there are problems at Eskom. There was no specific to say who did what. It was more to say there is general problems of procurement, general problems of management, and also indicating that these matters, they are not new. They've been reported to the Hawks. His concern was that they've been reported. Hence, after you have reported that in the meeting, I took the liberty to check with the national head of DPCI whether is he aware of Eskom cases, and he indicated that no, there is a lot of cases that he's investigating that ranges from corruption, procurement, and so on and so on. So that is basically the response, Honorable Chair, on that one. Right at the beginning, when he reported, as I said, when he was reporting, there was a problem of that around power stations, there is a problem of management. Hence I said, no, yes, let me give you somebody that can go and listen to you. Because he said he have got further information that he could share, but he can share only with those that are investigating. But I said, no, you can speak to the Hawks, or alternatively speak to Brigadier Berger, and he can liaise with the relevant people. And Brigadier Berger was designated. He went to meet him, and from there, the Brigadier came back to me to say, no, the information that I got is already with the Hawks, but I'll further report there. And later the Brigadier came to say, no, but these cases are no more with the Hawks currently. They are with the ID. They're investigated by the ID. Anything new I get, I will convey it to the ID, which for me that was okay, that can be done. But cases of your access control, damage to property at power stations, those are the ones that I said, okay, we'll form up a team that will support the Hawks and the ID in the investigation of the cases. Hence, then we establish a multidisciplinary team that has to then go to power station, including trying to do access control at the power station, which was done. So whether the information he gave met Section 34(1), The response there is that the information he gave was already given. It was already available to the authorities. So it wasn't for me a new, except that the element that we find that we need to strengthen was more the access control to various power stations. Did he made
Chair,
any?
my apology. I think the question is specific, Chair, to allegation made by Mr. Director. One, the 4 cartels that he mentioned, well-known, highly trained, organized, killing people on daily basis. 2, the car dealers in Pumalanga Highfield, where you can go there, park your Maserati, and you exchange it so that your tracking and tracing is concealed, that you don't leave any tracks in your. I'm talking about those cases. I thought you were privy to the interview. I did not want to mention all those cases. People having 18-year-old champagnes, all those issues. The buyer, Chair, that was arrested and released the following day on an instruction of the senior official, and nothing was done. The 1 million theft,
okay.
where
I think the point is,
yes,
in specific detail, or rather, did Mr. Director report in specific detail, or did he make generic statements to say, I've got problems? Because the nub of the issue, National Commissioner, is fundamentally that issues were reported, but there was no action taken. So there's a long laundry list of things, which some of it Honorable Hatebe alludes to. So I think it's in specific detail. But what did Mr. Director report and what action was taken? So I think that's where we are.
Thanks, Honorable Chair and members. No, those details were never reported at that meeting, and neither to me. To me, he raised the matter of, the only matter he raised was that of Mr. Matsila Koko, that he's aware there is a case, but we seems to not to be moving or doing anything. Hence, I did make some move. I inquired from, also while I was talking to the head of the DPCI, I also asked him about that case. But those other ones, no. To me, no. He never mentioned to us that. Thanks. But the other ones will be dealt with by the head of DPCI. Thanks.
Okay, let's get the Hawks, because the issue was that Brigadier Berger was the one designated. He came back and said the information relayed is with the Hawks. So I think that's where let's hear the Hawks out to follow the chain of events.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think that the 2 questions on the first one, whether Section 34(1) meet all the reporting requirements. All what I can say at this stage is that a report in terms of Section 34 has been made to the DPCI a day before he appeared before the SCOPA. And then whether the report complies with the requirements of Section 34, it is an area that one have got to be careful when you talk about this publicly, because there is already another case that was reported before that there is failure to comply with Section 34. So there is this allegation of failure to comply with Section 34 by somebody else. And now there is a report that has been made. So we wouldn't like to answer as to whether it complies with the requirements, because these things will go and and on the table of the NPA to decide as to whether the content of what we are having here satisfy the NPA. So at this stage, we can only say that there was a report, but whether it is in line, we want to wait for the NPA to come and test the content of the files. That is one. The issue of whether the Hawks is in the position of the information that shall have been raised. The information that came to the attention of the DPCI is what is contained in the report that has been made to us. It is the same report that has been submitted to the committee, which we have been provided copy. We have been comparing notes of what has been provided to us in terms of the report and what has been submitted before the committee. So more or less is the same document, which I said that it's only the heading that shows that this one I'm reporting to the DPCI and this one I'm reporting to the committee. The very same statement which indicate the fear of not wanting to divulge because of certain things that the complainant may be afraid of saying it in a document form as advised by others is the same report that we are having. So the content, obviously, we will be investigating what is contained in the report, but we will not divulge how we approach this, the investigation, but the information we have, we are working on that since we have received the information. So there will be the follow-up regarding the affidavit so that the information that is provided under oath. So that is part of the requirements that we will be following. Thanks, Chairperson.
Okay. Just for clarity, the statement that was submitted to us by Mr. Terita, I had forwarded to so that they could have sight of what Mr. Terita had placed before us. So just to clarify the point that the General is making. Right. Are there any other responses to the questions that Honorable Hadebe asked? All right, Advocate Mtibi, just let's get the responses in total. Advocate Mtibi.
Honorable Chair, thanks. As Honorable Hadebe indicated, just for the record, he asked specifically whether SAPS or SIU or Hawks are in possession of this information. From the SIU side, specifically, we also do not have the report or information provided or as allegedly provided by the former CEO. Thank you.
The issue of the report we will deal with tomorrow. The board is here, so they will take us through the issues of that report. Right. Any other outstanding questions? So also can come in. So Bambanji will come back to follow up, so members can get a chance to ask.
Follow up. Remember when we asked this question, Mr. Director referred us to Hawks. I'm asking. I understand the report submitted after he has left Eskom. The impression that he submitted information while he was still a group chief CEO. I'm asking whether that meeting, subsequent to that meeting, has he submitted to your good self's information in line with section 34, subsection 1, and you did not act on it? The one submitted later on, I understand. I'll allow you space and time to deal with it, but the impression created is that immediately after June and July 2022, information was submitted to your good self, you did not act in line with section 34.
All right.
That's the information. Are you aware of these cartels? Right, are you aware of this?
Right, let's do this. Let's do this.
Car dealer in Mpumalanga, Highveld.
Let's do this. General, are they section 34 submissions by Mr. Terita whilst he was still the group executive, CEO of Eskom. Because you see, the train of thought is that the National Commissioner says the Brigadier came back and said the information is with the Hawks. So I think that's the issue. Uti, did Mr. Terita report anything in specific terms to yourselves as the Hawks which should have been investigated? And where is that? And we note that on the eve of our meeting here, you received the similar statement as us. But whilst he was an incumbent, was anything received by yourselves?
Honorable Chairperson, the report that is submitted a day before he comes here is the first report that came to the attention of the Hawks.
Okay, there you go. Right. All right. We'll come back. Babu Somyo, thank you, General Libya. Babu Somyo.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the Commissioner, Head of Hawks, and SIU, ladies and gentlemen. The former GCO said a number of things, but my pertinent area is on his private investigation. Now you know that there's been private investigation. And you say, well, let me also say that way. When did you become aware that there's private investigation taking place charged by the former GCEO? That's the first question. In your knowledge, such kind of a knowledge of an occurrence in an institution of Eskom's caliber, which has been defined, even the president, when he has to assign the army, he has to come to parliament, when he has to apply his mind on certain elements that require the attention of government. There are certain precautions taken. But this kind of investigation, a decision taken by, as confirmed by Mr. Director when he was here, by himself and approaching private funders to do so. Is it a normal occurrence? And knowing the standing of Eskom as an institution which is somewhat defined as a national key point, is it an acceptable occurrence? Is it a known occurrence that it should be an act that is tolerated somewhat? At 3, Mr. Director has never been vetted. He himself confirmed that fact. But indulging into these sort of matters, which relate to clandestine work, you see, covert intelligence work, does it amount to a level of interest to yourselves that an individual who hasn't been put into an acceptable scale in terms of the security of the country, the security of the entity, which is specifically defined in a sense as it is national key point, that individual should indulge into such kind of a sensitive work which deals with matters of high security. A number of questions have put in front of us which relate to the very same investigation, which I do appreciate from the SIU side, which really now ought to be our attention. The question of authority to investigate, he himself indicates that that authority has never been authority gained from the board of Eskom. He confirmed it here on the day. But there is a very interesting trend, even if you follow what happened then thereafter, that the CEO of a particular institute confirmed having approached that institute for a specific amount of funding which ought to go into that kind of work. What does that elicit in terms of the operational capability of security institutions which ought to govern elements of that nature in terms of security of entities like Eskom, as it is the fact that it is somewhat known. Then the last thing is that now there is a report. He says to us that report has been shared with yourselves. The report has been shared with yourselves. And I hear that the SIU says they haven't seen the report. They've acquired about the report. I don't know whether is that the case with the Hawks or the police as well to get hold of the report. But the subsequent actions which have taken place, I'm putting subsequently in a questionable way, subsequent actions that took place in the part of the security apparatus, the arrests, the cases which have been listed, and all the stuff are somewhat owned and labeled as the subsequent gains after that investigation. And therefore, the report has given rise into some form of encouragement for you to act in a particular way. And as a result, these reported cases are an outcome of that kind of a report per se. It's not Mr. Director alone who would cite that. A number of other people claim that that report is of value because it has made you to act after the failure on your part to act. So without any malay or prejudice from your side, is it the fact that report has made you, after a lull from your side, to act? And the actions that we are seeing now, whether they come from any other angle in relation to Eskom's inability to function, matters of corruption, crime, one other term which has been used, sabotage, which has been discovered by that kind of investigation, you were then made to be active as a result of that report. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Colleagues and everyone present, please have due regard. This venue is very small. So when there's chit-chat everywhere, it culminates into an unnecessary backing vocalist to whatever's on the floor of a member speaking. Please. Over to you, so that we can get responses to those questions, and then Honourable Van Minion will come in.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. One has taken note of the questions raised by the Honourable Somyo. And then maybe most of the questions my colleague from the SIU would want to attend to them, because they are more related to the acquisition of the services of this private entity and all those things that are related to it. And I think that the SIU has posed a number of questions that need to be probed. But when it comes to criminal matters, at times we check what they are identifying as to whether the acquisition is in contravention of any law. And that is why when they have finalized those processes, they will refer the matter to the NPA. At the same time, they will also refer to us so that we look at the possible criminal allegations that shall have been identified in the process. So we will be working closely together to follow up if there are issues for contracting a private investigator to conduct an investigation. The first one, maybe I can say that when did we become aware of the report? The report that we are having is the same report that has been submitted to the committee. It is not the report by the private investigator. So what the private investigator have done and submitted, we do not have sight into that one. So what we are having is the report compiled by the lawyer of Mr. Derater, which is now reporting to the DPCI and the committee. So that other one, we have been thinking around that. One might be interested, but there is a way of engaging that one, which I think that we'll be working closely with others. But it answers that we did not receive the investigation report from private investigators. The issue of the vetting of individuals and the like, whether you employ a private investigator who has not been vetted, that is part of what will be established during the probe, maybe the initial probe by intelligence. Generally, from our side, when we receive a complaint of a crime, you may find that the investigation by a private investigator was done and then commissioned by the complainant, and we take that basic starting point affidavit. We normally don't vet the private investigator who have done that, but we look at the affidavit itself. And I'm of the view that he treats that investigation as a source of information, which one will see if he is prepared to table it before the board and the like. Obviously, I'm unable to answer the authority to investigate by the board, which the SIU has posed questions to on that. The question, the last one that I'll deal with is whether the DPCI was lull before the report. As I indicated, that the first report that we got is the one before he came before the committee on the 25th of April. So our investigation, we have been doing this investigation for quite a long time. A number of accused persons who have been convicted. We have been dealing with those cases long before this report come. And some of the investigations we have conducted before he was actually appointed in the position that he was appointed in. So our investigation was not lull. If we were talking about the matters that the National Commissioner is referring to, that went to the ID, which they have effected arrest after there were those inquiries. That investigation started some time, and when the commission came into place, there were recommendations that the ID will deal with the matters coming from the commission. And then it is part of those that they have identified that matters emanating from Eskom, we declare them that they must come and be handled by the ID. It is in that regard that we said, oh, our investigators that have been dealing with this matter, you can utilize their services. We avail them until such time that the matter is dealt with. So that is how we have been dealing with this. It is not the question of being null until the report comes in. The report is April, we are only in May, and then we have already effected several arrests, several convictions. Thanks, Chairperson.
You see, General Libya, you know what the dilemma of the members are? Is that the issues that you received on the 25th in the director statement speak to cartels and syndicates. But you will recall that in a meeting where you were present with the SIU pointed to a syndicate. So the matter then therefore is not new. You remember the report of, I can have it pulled out, the report of the SIU on that day is pointed to 3 areas, and specifically Mpumalanga. So I just like you to reflect on that. Whilst you received the director statement on the 25th, it may have gone into detail, but as a point of departure, as far as we are concerned, the issues around the syndicate and the cartel were long on your table. What worries us is that we don't seem to get a sense from the Hawks at the very least saying the issues he raised on the 25th sort of fall into place with an investigation. Not sure if I'm making sense. All I'm trying to clarify is that General Libya will recall he was present when the SIU presented to us on that. Let's get that final response from the SIU.
There's a question which hasn't answered. That about the investigation. At which stage were you aware of the existence of private investigation at Eskom by the former GCEO?
Thank you, Chairperson. The knowledge of the involvement of the private investigator is when we are reading this report, and something that thereafter followed in the media, that there was this thing that was handled by private investigators. So we were not informed other than what we read in the document that has been submitted. Otherwise, as I shall have indicated during the presentation in slide 18, there are matters that we are currently investigating. I pointed out that there are 60 matters which are without unpacking them. When you start unpacking them, obviously it will not need a public arena because you are dealing with complainants and witnesses and the like. that you may not want to unpack that. But these 60 matters that we are currently investigating are not based on the report that you have provided. So we have been investigating matters. Thanks.
Advocate Mtibi, Honorable Van Minen, stand by.
No, thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Somyo, we really appreciate the question that you have raised regarding the, the approach by the former CEO to a third party to investigate, and what does it really say about Eskom and so on. So that's the part that really would like to probe, and at this stage would really say when we have probed that part, we would then come back to the committee to really pronounce ourselves. With regard to previous reports, and we're really trying to get hold of the specific reports, the SIU indeed did indicate that the trend that we are seeing in Eskom points to organized crime and points to syndicate. So looking at my colleague General Libia's report, and of the 60 matters, amongst others, that they are investigating, and some of those emanate from our referrals to NPA and to the DPCI. So it does really look like that the DPCI is indeed investigating those matters, and of course, once these matters are probably all investigated, we'll probably have a sense of the extent of how organized these criminals are, and how is it that we can now nip them in the bud as they continue to be charged and they appear in courts, and we look at the modus operandi. If you look at the modus operandi that we've picked up, it's clearly that it points to syndicate approach and organized crime, and of course the DPCI is busy with all of those matters that we have referred. Thank you.
Honorable Van Minen.
Thanks very much, Chair. Chair, I'm very aware that we are pressed for time, and we've had a lot of information coming through today, so I'm just going to touch on a couple of areas. I do think it's a pity that the NPA isn't part of this meeting, because we're hearing from SAPS, the SIU, and the Hawks, and obviously at the end of the day, as we've also seen with the presentations, a lot of the recommendations go through to the NPA, who then has to obviously shoulder the burden of trying to get it through the court system and then getting a conviction if possible. What does concern me is the very glacial nature of what we're seeing. So it's 3 different entities, and yet when we look at the individual cases, progress is slow. You'll see that some of them, people were only actually referred to court 10 years after the alleged event, which is problematic. And I want to know if it indicates issues on behalf of investigations. Are there problems with investigations? Does it indicate long-term intelligence operations? What are we seeing there? Of the convictions that were highlighted here, particularly in the Hawks matter, I only see 2 direct custodial sentences. I do see for reasons I don't particularly understand, maybe it's not in the presentation, why a very serious conviction only resulted in a suspended sentence. And a lot of the matters highlighted are also still ongoing, with people either out on bail or things that are not yet completed. So I am concerned that when I see the things that are being highlighted as victories, in fact, when you unpack it, it indicates issues that may emanate from SAPS, may emanate from the investigation, might indicate a problem with the NPA. So that is something I would really like to have unpacked. I think we can all agree that what is happening with Eskom currently is probably the biggest challenge we have to the South African state and society. And yet I'm getting the impression there's a very circular argument going around as to when there is quite precise allegations raised, It might not be in an affidavit form, but an affidavit doesn't make something true. An affidavit is merely that the person making the affidavit claims them to be true. There's some very precise and some very pointed allegations made in this report that we received 2 weeks ago. And I also can't really determine from the answers what the status of the investigation is. On one hand, it seems that there are allegations that certain matters were investigated previously, even prior to the previous CEO being the CEO. On the other hand, we're hearing that, well, it doesn't actually fit the format, so there seems to be some doubt as to what is happening there. So from the three different entities here today, I think the SIU's report has certainly been the clearest of the lot. What exactly is happening with regards to allegations that have been made, let's say over the last 10 months, by the previous CEO, that may emanate from the private investigation, but certainly the statement that Scopa received has got some very clear information there, particularly regarding cartels, organized crime and syndicates. Is there in fact an investigation, or are we seeing a shield being used of, well, it isn't actually in compliance with PRECA, or it isn't actually in an affidavit format, therefore there isn't anything to investigate? We really do need clarity on that, because we can't have circular arguments going around when we're really dealing with a national crisis that has to be dealt with. Thank you.
Let's get responses to that, and then Honourable Suwe, stand by.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. One is noting the concerns regarding the nature of the sentences that are being meted out. Generally, the work of the investigation arm of this process is to secure the attendance of the accused persons in court. And once that is done, we work closely with the National Prosecuting Authority that must present the matter in court. Once a presiding officer decide as to whether the accused is guilty of an offense, then is the two parties to argue. The National Prosecuting Authority will usually argue for aggravated type of sentence. And the defense will also argue that the convict deserve leniency, which I think one of the matters the court have even pronounced itself that the individual have showed remorse and the like. So there is evidence that is normally provided. It is not in our power to direct the presiding officer. And the prosecutors will also try to argue, but the ultimate decision rests on the bench as to the nature of the sentences. Some of the sentences, the prosecutors also want to appeal that, but this type of sentence we are not happy with. We think that an individual should have been given custodial, long-term custodial sentence. So that, I think, will answer the question of the type of sentences. When we report on the successes, part of the thing that we do is to show when was the matter reported, then when did we secure the attendance of the accused person in court, and what happened in between. Some of these individuals, I think that there are those that we can show that this one has been waiting for the trial to be concluded for 3 years, and the court takes this into consideration when passing a sentence. It is one of those that we shall have highlighted happening in Mpumalanga. So, but that, I think it is the discretion of the bench or the presiding officer at the lower court to decide the nature of the sentence which is included in the law that they are applying. There are those types of laws that put a minimum, which always ensures that no one shall be sentenced below this one. But there are those that the sentences are governed by the jurisdiction of the court, either district, regional, or the High Court. So that speaks to the nature of the sentences, including the suspended sentence that they normally meet. There are those that we have seen, which the feeling is that, but this one should have been given something custodial, but the bench may have been convinced otherwise by the defense. With regard to the nature of the information that we shall have received and how we are dealing with that one, I think that that need to be left for the investigation. The reason why we are dealing with this thing under oath is the experience emanating from the investigation. When you just take a word of somebody else, when you find something different, then if it is not an oath, you are not able to visit that particular person. That's why this information that we normally get is under oath. But any analyst who analyzes this information that has been provided, you'll see that there is a need for more to be brought forward, which I think that is what we are trying to do, so that whatever evidence at the end of the day, if anyone is going to be taken to court, we are able to go and prove beyond reasonable doubt when we arrive in court. So that, I think, can, at this stage, answer the nature of the information and how we are dealing with that one. Thanks, Chairperson.
Sure.
Thanks. In fact, if you listen to my question, my original question was really about the status of the investigations. Is there a problem with why the investigations take so long before they get to court? Because some of them really have been ongoing for a long time. And given the fact that we've now got 3 agencies essentially working on the issues at Eskom, I'm just concerned about that length of time. And in terms of the second question, it's simply trying to gain clarity as to whether or not you are investigating these allegations or not. I'm not asking about the nature of them, but whether or not there actually is an investigation going ahead, because we're getting completely different aspects of this passing around the room, and we just need clarity on this. Thank you.
Chairperson, I think simply those 3 matters that I've indicated in the presentation, we are investigating them. There is investigation. And then the length of investigation is normally dictated by the nature of the case. There are simple cases where you have got 1 count that you need to prove. But as I shall have indicated here, some of them are more than 53 counts. Some of them are more than 100 counts. And to prove more than 100 counts, it means that each count must be proved beyond reasonable doubt when you go to court. So whenever you conduct your investigation, you do it in such a way, guided by those who will be presenting, that we will be able, there is sufficient evidence to go and present this with the intention of proving it beyond reasonable doubt. In case of civil matters, it is easier. You can quickly finalize those because doubt is acceptable. You do not have to prove beyond reasonable doubt, as long as there is the probability. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, Honourable Siweya, Honourable Mkonto, stand by, and then Mazamban.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, and good morning to the Minister and your delegation. Let's go back to the SAPS report. So I'm taking it that on page 5, for example, the successes that you would have mentioned they don't necessarily have anything to do with the report which was submitted a day before the sitting of the committee. And if that is correct, I am more interested in, because you see ourselves as a committee, we're faced with a situation where he wakes up, he throws something, he disappears. We call him, he comes, he speaks in half, and then he says, I can't give you all the details, and then he leaves. And so on. And we have taken a resolution that we will summon everybody that he has implicated to want to get an understanding. If somebody was going to wake up and lie about me, in my world, I would demand that they retract, or I will sue them or something like that. I'm interested in what is the consequence management for yourself as SAPS, because what is it that you're going to do to prove that what he's saying is wrong? Is there consequence management in your prescripts which you can utilize to ensure that he tells the truth and he clears you? Because this is weighed against yourself. Generally, you say, you then decided to give him a call. In the call, you delegated somebody to go. That somebody comes back and says, Mr. Director says he has given the report to the Hawks. We are finding out that he was also lying in that context. When you had delegated somebody to go and obtain this information, was it under oath? Because then if it was under oath, it means he has then lied to you. Because you then discovered later that there was no report which he has sent. What is the consequence management in that regard? It also then asks a question to say, how is the relationship between yourselves as the Hawks, SIU and SAPS? Is it a case where maybe he knows that there's breaking relationship between yourselves and therefore he does not see the need to tell you the truth? He can willingly say, no, you are here, I've given whoever the report. Is it because he knows there's weaknesses amongst yourself in terms of how you relate with each other? The last one, Chair, is, for example, where I'm sitting, I was telling my colleague that I don't even believe it when he says he's not in the country. Because he says, no, I've got fear of my life, I am not around, and what are the powers that you have, for example, if we can want to treat him as a whistleblower, to give him some form of protection, and that if he is a noble citizen who is worried about corruption that is happening in Eskom, he's coming out to say, I've given them information, but they are not giving me the protection so that I can tell South Africans what is the truth of the problem. I think it's important for yourselves because it is weighed against yourself. And when every time you come and you give us the successes, which are very good, I think it's page, just 1 second. Are the successes in page 15 of the SAPS or are in the last presentation? Yeah, I had written it somewhere here. So somehow it can also appear to us that maybe the little hints that he's giving you are actually the honest truth, while maybe he's trying to use what you had been successfully doing before. He could actually give us the report. I'm also requesting that the page 57 of the SIU, the last bulletin there, if you can explain to us in full the whole detail of the process. You are speaking about wanting to then eventually get the truth out of him. I'm more interested in what is the process that you're going to take. It's on page 57 of the SIU, the last bulletin around section 34. If you can elaborate and expand on it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's get to responses. The last bullet off, slide 57.
Yes, Chair, slide
Okay.
57.
All right. Thanks. All right.
The last bulletin about the section 34.
Sure.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, let's get responses.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. The relationship between or amongst us, we relate quite well. We do not have problems. And the information that he gave to the brigadier, it was not in a format of a statement. He just gave him, and the brigadier did indicate to me that he have forwarded the same to the relevant authorities, which is the Hawks and the ID, but he also said that they were aware of most of the information that he alluded to. Yeah, with regard to the successes on page 15, that is basically what mostly SAPS does, because we deal with the teams that has been established, that is led by Jacobs. They deal with both the proactive and the combating of crime and disruptions, while the agencies DPCI and ID deal with more the serious organized crime, which will include all those, if there's cartels, everything to that effect. So that's how we work. And relationship, no, we do not have a problem amongst all of us up to DPCI, SIU, and ID. Thanks, Honorable.
Maybe differently put, National Commissioner, the issue is the information that Mr. Tereta gave to Brigadier Berger, right? Is it the same information that he has given us and the Hawks on in April, or was it something different? So I'm trying to gauge is, there was an interview on TV. Mr. Tereta made a variety of sweeping allegations. Now you tried to find him. The Hawks tried to find him. The SIU tried to find him. You all didn't find him. We found him. Right? Now, the question then becomes, where Honorable Siweya is at, is seated here now. When did you become aware of the allegations formally, let me put it that way, outside the interview, of what Mr. Tereta said? Because there's all sorts of structures, net joints, all sorts of things that are in place. I'm still coming to the instruction, But in any case, so the point is, I get a sense, we're all saying we received information, but it's not specific with what information is it. And I still go back to the point, is that the issue of cartels is not new. So where Honorable Siweya really is that this information that was given when, after Mr. Tereta spoke to you and you seconded the brigadier, and then he came back and said it's with the same information with the Hawks, right? What we're speaking about now, specifically, is information from interview day to date, as you try to find him. So we can separate these things, because if we speak in these broad terms which we've spoken, it doesn't help. There's issues around senior politicians that have been raised. We're still coming to that. Are you investigating politicians? Because pointedly is, are you investigating the cartel? You either say yes or no. Not getting into your investigation modus operandi, we're not going to enter. But what we need to test is, you've got a former GCO of Eskom making a variety of allegations of serious consequence. What action has been taken? I mean, to say you couldn't find him or he didn't respond, quite frankly, that, for me, is a non-response. It's neither here nor there. I don't want to get into how I interpret it. Put it aside. There's the allegations on the table. Now the Hawks have them formally in a statement that we have. All we're interested in, are you investigating within all these structures that are there? In 2019, the president cut a visit in Egypt short and came back and made a bold statement and said there was sabotage. In 2019, it's now 2023. So I think let's begin streamlining ourselves to gauging whether there's progress or not. I just wanted to Because I see now the answers are becoming, oh, you know, no. It's nechaning anni. It's not. Yeah. So,
Hence, I thought it would be prudent, Chair, to list all these allegations so that they can respond. Because
they've received the director
Yes.
statement, right? National Commissioner, and then Babum TV, and then we proceed with members. I was just trying to put a context. The responses have to be very pointed and specific to the issues being raised. These generic answers are not helping.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. The information on slide 5, Honorable Chair, yes, Mr. Director did mention it to me. The one about Matselako did mention to me long before, that is, long before he did the submission to the committee. And also, as I said, matters around crime within the environment of power stations, we discussed that, but matters relating to specifically information around cartels and so on, that wasn't mentioned. But as I said, I delegated the brigadier to go see him. He came back, and he already went to DPCI and ID to share that information with them. That wasn't shared with me, but he shared with them. But I don't have the details of everything the brigadier shared with DPCI and ID. Thanks, General.
Advocate Mtibi, we want to come back to that. Advocate Mtibi.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. Honorable Siweya. The bullet point on slide 57 was really for us to indicate that if there's any report that the former CEO would have done, should have been in terms of PRECA, specifically section 34. And we were seeking to really just say, you know, how does it go about? One of the one of the considerations is that, you know, an acknowledgement of receipt has to be made, which General Libya indicated. But suffice to say, my colleague General Libya has indicated that there are investigations, there's allegations of failure to comply with that, you know, section and so on. So from our side, as SIU specifically, there is no further process in this regard that would be followed through. It is clear that our colleagues are really dealing with that. And as General Libya indicated, he probably cannot pronounce more because there's investigations underway. Thank you.
Honorable Mkonto, and then Mazamba stand by after he will come in.
Thanks, Chair, for the opportunity. Good morning to you, honorable members, the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and their team. Chair, emanating from what the other fellow members have already alluded to, I think maybe I have to rephrase my question as to, from what is being reported, the steps that Mr. Director was expected to follow in reporting these matters, and the level at which these investigations are. Can I then, Chair, bring in the issue of intelligence? As to, I know intelligence is not represented here, but is there anything that intelligence can assist with? Because if a person, we are told a person in a position of authority did not present a statement under oath, then it's a challenge. Then what role can be played by by intelligence in the investigation process. The Hawks talked about, that is my question number 2. The Hawks talked about prevention of corruption. Chair, seated here, my observation is that this team in front of us today failed dismally, including Mr. Director himself. They failed dismally to prevent corruption. Hence, we are seated here with this lot of questions of a lot of corruption activities that has taken place at Eskom. But then the question based on that is that they also, the SIU also talked about maladministration. I will also go back to the issue of whistleblowers. After Mr. Director had an interview with a TV or ETV, most radio stations in Mpumalanga debated that topic. And the people that had information of what exactly is going on at Eskom are low-level workers. They even talked about the issue of skills. Director himself hiring or confusing the issue of skills, specifically the engineers and so forth and so forth. I think it will be better maybe for this team to get to the bottom of that, because the issue of sabotage was also mentioned in couple with this issue of skills. People having certain skills used in terms of the sabotage, others being sidelined, and so forth and so forth. So, Chair, I want to know as to, thirdly, are the Hawks and SAPS using whistleblowers to get some of the information? And if there are some whistleblowers that are being used, what is the success rate? That will be my question, sir, because, Chair, because my fellow members have already asked some of the questions. Thank you.
Right, can we get a response to that?
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. During the course of the work that we are doing in Mpumalanga, the Hawks, they do investigate cases that relate to syndicates that we discovered on the ground, dealing with coal, fuel, and quite a number of other things, illegal coal yards, which our crime combating teams do deal with them. With regard to the employment of people with less skills, there I think we are not, we cannot comment on that, but yes, we are aware that there is a problem with regard to the quality of coal that go through to Eskom, and as you have seen on our presentation, we have arrested quite a number of people for supplying that wrong code. We do use informers, yes, our intelligence. The team headed by General Jacobs is integrated. It also consists of crime intelligence and SSA within it. So they are intelligence driven, and whatever that belongs to, whatever they pick up on the ground, whether it belongs to SAPS or DPCI, they do pass the relevant intelligence to those teams. General Jacobs, you can add on what I said.
Thank you, National Commissioner. Thank you, Chair. Maybe just to add to the point that in the course of our work, we have uncovered that not just in terms of these words of cartels, but there are criminal syndicates operating in the coal supply line. That we found that there were coal diverted that was en route to Eskom, diverted, dumped at coal yard, picked up. We've raided a number of those coal yards. We've identified the owners of the coal yards. We've, for example, one farm that is about 400 hectares, as we uncovered on the farm 28 sub-coal yards, which were rented out to various people. That farm owner was fined on the one hand, and the various coal yard operators were also fined, and we're looking at their criminal operation as one. We've disrupted a number of their activities, where we've identified syndicates in the fuel oil mix. We've disrupted the activities and open cases. We've referred some of those dockets to some to the DPCI, some to the NPA for decision making. So the process of identification of syndicates is far and beyond these terms that have been used, like cartels and those things. We've across the value chain in the distribution field, where we've seen syndicates that are involved in the copper theft. We've identified the various scrapyards involved in those issues, and busy building up the syndicate operations around those things. So we have been quite active in identifying across the whole value chain various syndicates. So yes, there is this group identified, which we've only seen in the newspaper. They've mentioned it, but some of them are currently also our targets, the people mentioned there. So I submit there, Chairperson. Thank you.
It's fine. We'll go to General Lebe. Want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Just to indicate that the matters of sabotage that have been alleged, there has been several investigations that we have been doing in that regard. So those are not emanating since the Mr. Director have reported. These are the allegations that we have been investigating. It is only evidence that is needed to prove that the alleged sabotage is perpetrated by specific individuals. So most of these allegations is very, very challenging to get evidence to prove those allegations. And just to also indicate that most of the allegations will be referred to as dealing with cartel or whatever name the people might prefer to utilize. If one look at the arrest that we make, it's not an individual operating alone. And the people tend to name those things different names, labels. Others will say that there is mafia. Others will say cartel. Others will say syndicate. But these are what we call organized criminal grouping. And when we charge all of them. Each one have got specific role that he or she shall have played. And the examples are those that we have just shown in this presentation. Thanks, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Liz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's the term glacial was used earlier this morning, and I think that that generally is true. And I give you the example, General Lebeya, of Marcus Juster. December 2017, the Steinhoff matter blew. A year later, you'd investigated one transaction. 6.5 years later, Mr. Juster remains at large, enjoying his life. And so the pace at which these investigations move is glacial. And I want to single out the SIU slightly there, because if you look at the report of the SIU, there's action. There's results. There are consequences. And even today, Advocate Matibi is wanting the private investigation report, and I assume and I hope, in order to go and find more people to go and charge and bring to book. Not in some effort to put someone under pressure because they didn't report, did report, whatever. We want the criminals to be put into jail. And I'm afraid it's not happening at the pace it should be. And it's astounding, National Commissioner, how you so easily brush aside reports from Andre de Ruyter as, well, you know, there's nothing concrete here for us to move on. Your job is to investigate. Your job is to find the evidence, not wait for someone to give you the evidence. And there again, I say, the SIU does exactly that. They get up and they go and find the evidence. They get a proclamation to go and investigate something, and they go and find the evidence. I'm astounded at the ease with which these reports are simply brushed aside. Now, Mr. Chairman, there's an obligation on the people appearing before us today to answer our questions clearly and to the point. And I would ask for your assistance when I do ask my questions. I've only got 2 questions, Mr. Chairman. The first question is this. Is, National Commissioner, is any one of your command structures investigating the involvement of any politicians in the affairs, malfeasance of Eskom? I don't want to know the names unless you're willing to tell me, but are there politicians being investigated? The second question, Mr. Chairman, is that the National Commissioner has informed us today that Brigadier Berger, the name didn't come from Andre de Ruyter, it came from the National Commissioner, was set up a team, as I understand it, to investigate or find out what was going on. My question to you, did Brigadier Berger receive information and reports from the private investigators? Yes or no? If you don't know, Mr. Chairman, we need to call Brigadier Berger here to answer that question. Thank you.
Right. Let's get responses to that. Honourable Bukis, stand by. Mamzubul, stand by. And then I think we've still got time, so follow-ups will still come through, but we'll go to those members. Right. Let's get responses to that.
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson. General Lebeya will deal with the first question. The second question, Honourable Chair, I'm not brushing aside what Mr. De Ruyter have said. I established a team, and the team started supporting the investigation by the DPCI. And what General Jacobs have said just now is what we have then uncovered after we have started doing this work. So it's not to say we didn't sit back. I formed a team, a multidisciplinary team consisting of various departments, and some cases they're doing at their level. Some cases, as he said, they escalated those cases to the DPCI for investigation. So we are doing something, and we did exactly that. Go and find out, go and investigate, launch crime combating operations within the areas of your Mittelberg and Emalahleni, and arrests were executed, and some of the investigation, as General Lebe have said, they are ongoing, they've been started. Is there any of our structures investigating any politician? I'm not aware of, but I will allow General Lebe to respond on that. Currently myself, I'm not aware of. Did Brigadier Berger bring info? Yes, Brigadier Berger did say he was briefed, and the information he got from the private investigator, he escalated to the DPCI and the ID. But I never did get that information myself to listen. As long as he took it to the relevant authorities, I was quite happy that it get the necessary attention. And
so, Mr. Chairman, it wasn't a surprise then that there was this private investigation, so the SAPS were aware of it.
What he said was that he took the information there, and that information was already, the authorities or the structures were already aware of what is being said in the report. So I didn't get any report from him as to what exactly is that. Thank you.
National Commissioner, I think for the purposes of clarity, because the question is around the intelligence report, which Honorable Some was at pains earlier on, now, the question is, this team that you established, was it briefed that there's an intelligence operation by a private entity going on at Eskom? I think that's the nub of that. Were you aware? So you couldn't have then been aware on the 26th when there was a public expose of this. So were you aware as SAPS that there's an investigation by a private entity?
I became aware that there is a private investigator that is involved, but not intelligence collection, but private investigator that I became aware. It was recently, well, I can't really get to the specific, but it was recently after the appointment of the team, which...
So when was the team appointed? Let's get that timeline.
The team was appointed last year, somewhere around July.
Right. Yeah. So the private investigation then, you became aware of that after that, as you've said. So ballpark figure in late 2022, early 2023, when? This becomes material in the turnaround time in response to the issues.
Yeah, as I said, Chairperson, it's around, I think, it must be around July last year when I became...
So you became aware of the private investigation in around July?
When Berger told me that he consulted a private investigator, but that info he relayed to the relevant structures. But the content, I'm not aware, Honorable Chair.
So we'll go to the General now. Can you just note that, colleagues, for the purposes of the timeline construction we are doing? Because that private investigation is this intelligence operation, right? It's that. Okay, it's fine. General, General Libya, over to you.
Thanks, Chairperson. I think that the matter that related to the DPCI was this one of the markers used. I'm not. It's just a comment, so I will not be responding. Thanks.
All right. Honorable Bucas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you also to the presentation. Chair, to the Hawks, I think is, according to Section 34 of PRECA Act 12 of 2004, it placed the duty on certain persons to report certain offences and fail of it is an offence. There was a case lodged by Maimani against Mr. Director. I just want to know what is the status of that case. Then, Chair, Mr. Director only submit a report through his attorneys a day before he appeared at SCOPA. Can it still be seen as a report of Section 34 of PRECA? Because Mr. Director is not the CEO of Eskom anymore. Then what is the process or the steps now following the report submitting by the former CEO, or must you now wait for formal affidavits on the allegations? Then, Chair, on the issue of portraying our law enforcement as weak, unreliable, not trustworthy, and I think putting you in a position of not willing to investigate and putting things under the carpet. I think my colleague was also asking about that. What is your take on it, and how will you fix it? Then, Chair, on the police, for the police, my colleague also referred to the meetings of the 4th of June and 5th of July. I hear the responses, Chair, but what I want to understand is what was the status of that meeting, and was the establishment of a safety and security priority committee part of the outcome of that specific meetings? Then prior to that meetings, Chair, there was already 1,660 Eskom-related cases reported. So what was the report from management at that meeting, specifically on the cases, especially from the accounting officer, and the impact of the current investigations on the situation of crime in Eskom? And was there prevention measures at that stage at Eskom? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. General Lebea, in this set of questions, please just note that the National Commissioner referred one question to you in that last round around the investigations of politicians. Can we get responses to that?
Thank you, Chairperson. With regard to the investigations of the politicians relating to Eskom matters, we do not have. On the status of the case reported by Mr. Maimani, it is currently under investigation. What needs to be done is that there are certain people that need to be approached so that we get their side of the story for the purpose of presenting the matter to the NPA. It is that area where I say that it is dicey, because that case requires that somebody else must report. That case, the allegation is that a specific person has failed to report. And it is that person that on the other side we want the statement. We want the statement from you, but we might charge you for failing to report. So this is a dicey one that we have got to be cautious and allow the process to be finalized. So all what we can say is that the matter is under investigation. That I think is what can attend to that one. The next question, which is also linked to the first one, whether the report by Mr. Durator after he ceased to be the CEO is seen as a report in section 34. We don't want to prejudge the thing because that is the area that somebody else need to apply the mind that somebody say you did not report, another one say I reported. So those are the things that somebody else must come and weigh and give us a direction. So us is to investigate both matters. This side is failure to report, and then the other side is that we need to hear and continue to investigate in terms of what is provided in section 34. So the information that is contained there assist us. Thank you.
Proceed, National Commissioner.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. The meeting of the 4th and both June and July, the status, well, initially we had cases that were being investigated around Eskom. The cases were all over investigated by various police stations. I'm now talking about ordinary cases of theft at the power stations or be it assault or whatever, so not the organized crime ones. So what that meeting did was to say we need to structure ourselves and all the cases, let them be accounted separately. As you have seen now, we have them in the presentation. And after the appointment of course, that brigadier, later I appointed General Jacobs to take over the work of coordinating the multi-dimensional team, which consists of various departments. So that was the status. The purpose was to have a central point where both crime combating and investigation within Eskom can be controlled from. That is then when we started with the team led by General Jacobs, consisting of uniform, of course, all the teams, uniform, the special forces, the investigation team of both General and DPCI and the NPA. So that was the purpose for that meeting. Thanks, Honorable Chair.
All right. National Commissioner, I'm not sure if you've got before you the director statement because I would like that we sent to you. So I'd like to draw your attention to page 12 of that statement. The paragraph beginning details of any action taken by yourself. At the bottom part of that. Just indicate when you have it. Mr. Director says, page 12, yes, right? The paragraph, the section beginning with the, in bold, details of any action taken by yourself. Oh no, it's not numbered. Yeah, it's not numbered. But it's fine. I'll read it. I'll read it. The Director says, given the broad spectrum and large scale of malfeasance in compliance with Section 34 of PRECA, I have undertaken a number of steps regarding the alleged corruption to report and cause same to be reported to law enforcement authorities and government officials on the highest level. These steps include a meeting held on Saturday, 4 June 2022 at Megawatt Park with senior police officials, including the National Commissioner General Masemola and representatives of the State Security Agency, where I requested the assistance of both SAPS and SSA to investigate corruption at Eskom and to assist Eskom in combating crime. Now, this is where I'm interested. Following this meeting, a police brigadier whose identity I leave to SAPS to disclose for reasons of security was designated by General Masimula to be the liaison with the intelligence operation. This officer has had full access to all of the intelligence gathered and has stated to me that he has kept his line command informed. So it takes me back to the issue that Honorable Somio has been raising and Honorable Lisa has been raising. Because I want to put it to you, National Commissioner, that given the gravity of the situation at Eskom and the impact and consequence it has on the country, economically, socially, and every other aspect, it's a national priority. So when the CEO of Eskom raises issues, raises them with you, fair enough. I want to put it to you that by appointing Brigadier Berger and subsequently the General now, you may have delegated the responsibility but not the accountability. And these allegations, given their seriousness, how they are handled and bringing them to a logical, legal, investigative conclusion, I place them squarely on your table. So, because the issues that are being raised, unless what Mr. Director you dispute, but he says, and this is the purpose of this meeting, it's for us to ascertain what's what and who's who. And so I would be interested to know, did you ever meet after June 2022 with Mr. Director until he left office? There's instruction note 68 here of net joints. Would be really interested to see what terms and conditions it gives to these operations that you are doing. Because I would imagine if there's a team, then the issues that he raises must be of constant agenda presence. Seated here, I don't get that sense. He raised the matter in June 2022. We gave it to Brigadier, and it went to the Hawks. I don't get a sense that from June to now that anything has happened, actually, unless you can put something on the table to convince us otherwise. And that is our area of concern. Because we have a correlation here. The collapse of Eskom at the hands of the syndicates is a major contributing factor to load shedding. Now, if your interventions are working, we should be seeing some sense of reduction in criminal activities in the Eskom space and therefore a reduction in load shedding. It's not happening. Instead, the military has now had to be brought in. And I go back to the first point. I'm not sure whether I can call the president a whistleblower, but for the purposes of the example I want to make, I will. In 2019, the president told the country that there was sabotage at Eskom, which led to him cutting a visit short to Egypt. That statement is one which cannot be taken lightly coming from the head of state. So it's now confirmed by subsequent events which have been raised, including but not limited by Mr. Director. So, National Commissioner, yes, you delegated the responsibility, but the accountability is squarely on your table. It's with you. And we don't get a sense here, unless convinced otherwise, that anything has happened. I think that's because the nub of today's meeting is the Director allegations. Yes, the other stuff we hear, but the CEO of the entity comes publicly and you try to find him, which still boggles the mind, by the way, if there's any cooperation within and amongst the law enforcement agencies, how you are unable to find him. you know. So I would really want to hear you there, National Commissioner, because for me, that is the crux of the matter. Did your designated brigadier withhold information from you? Honorable Siwe asked the question, what's the consequence management? But the accountability rests with you. So can I get a reaction to that, and then Mamzibola will come in, and then the follow-ups, colleagues.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. What was reported, as I said, yes, the report was made of maladministration and that corruption and crime and theft. We did not leave it lying, Honorable Chairperson. The establishment of the team was exactly to deal with everything that is been happening at Eskom. As I said, what we found was that the organized crime part of Eskom, most of the cases were already opened and investigated by the Hawks. So, and the ID. All we needed was keep us abreast in terms of how far these cases are going. And the established team, initially they worked from Pretoria, and later, when I appointed General Jacobs to take over for other reasons, the team went and established a office at the Megawatt Park. So that's how serious I took this matter. And the cases that you have seen on the presentation, that's what we have done. Even those arrests of, in terms of colliers, in terms of what is happening at power stations, that's the amount of work that we have done. And the only area that I said I didn't get too detailed, because all I want is, as long as information reached the relevant investigation structures, they will deal with it. I don't want to get too into the details of what information was given to Berger. Yes, he did come to say, no, I did, actually he went and met Mr. Derater, and he came back. Then I said, that information, where is it? He said, I gave it to the relevant authorities. So since the meeting, we did not sit and do nothing, Honorable Chair. I established a team that consists of all investigative and crime combating teams that continuously in that area of Mpumalanga. They were hard at work, and they're still hard at work. But of course, the long-term investigation cases, they always refer them to the Hawks to do investigation. When we started, yes, I heard the chairperson says the load shedding would have went down after if we were doing something. The results is there, Honorable Chair, on the presentation. We have done much. Yes, we have not yet reached the desired level where we would have said all cases should have been prosecuted, there should have been conviction. But we definitely stopped what was happening around the area of Mpumalanga with regard to power stations, with regard to the colliers. And investigations, yes, they are continuing. Unfortunately, they take too long. But at the end of the day, we didn't sit back and do nothing. We went out, I established a team, and you have heard the chairperson, General Jacobs, he alluded to what they are doing. So we are doing something, Honorable Chair. Unfortunately, the investigation of organized crime cases takes long, and yeah, but we did do a lot. Thanks, Honorable Chair.
Mamzibul.
Minister, Deputy Minister, and all protocol observed. Yabona Hlalo, it's very sad because no one is facing what we're facing outside. When people look at us, they look at us like the people who don't want to deal with this issue of Eskom. Commissioner, can you please tell me what mechanism you'll use to make the rater and yourself respect the law? Chair, we need to have a time frame for this process, because at the end of the day, we are losing it day by day. I thank you.
Okay, there's a reaction to that. All right, let's get now, Commissioner, if there's anything you want to say?
Honorable Chair.
Anything you want to react to?
Yes, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chairperson, I do respect the law. Hence, when crime is happening, I do take action. In this regard, we went in to Eskom. We identified areas where crime is happening. Proactively, we held operations in terms of colliers, in terms of inspecting trucks and so on. And reactively, Honorable Chair, cases that we found to be organized, we refer them to the relevant authorities, which is the DPCI. And we are still continuing as we speak, Honorable Chair. Maybe it's just that, yes, we acknowledge that load shedding and Eskom matters are of national priority. We acknowledge that. But indeed, we are not sitting back and looking at what is happening at Eskom. Daily, we are doing work. Daily, this General Jacobs is busy with his team. They are working at the vulnerable areas. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner. Colleagues, is going to wrap up with your last follow-ups. So very briefly, Honorable Hadebe, Somyo, Siweya, Lis, in that order, please.
Chair, first and foremost, National Commissioner, when you appoint a team, and in this case, this team that is stationed at Megawatt Park, surely at some point you must expect feedback, or you should be interested to find out whether or not they are doing what you have appointed them to do. We are told by the former group CEO that that team that you have appointed has full access to the intelligence gathered. It's almost a year now, and you are not privy to such a report. The SIU went to request the information at Eskom, and they were told the information is not there. Clearly, the information is between your good selves and the Hawks. Because according to what Mr. Director is saying to us, he has made available such information. It cannot be, therefore, that you have appointed a team and you don't know the status of the success, failures, challenges encountered by the team. Why then appoint a team if you're not interested in finding out whether it has achieved the desired outcome? Why would they first report somewhere else and furnish the relevant information somewhere else without you getting detail of what is it that they have discovered, and whether or not what they've furnished to the third party is indeed ultimately resolving what Mr. Director raised to you? That I find it concerning. Two, I need to know, where is this intelligence report? Is it between the brigadier you appointed, or is it with the Hawks? It is not with Eskom as per the presentation from the SIU. You have not disputed your brigadier having seen or had access to that report. Two, Mr. Director has explicitly informed us that he has reported the senior politician. Now, I'm not talking just any politician. A senior politician reported by Mr. Director to the Hawks. But what is concerning your response is that you are not investigating any politician. Have you at any point received complaint or request to investigate a senior politician who is involved in corruption at Eskom, and that senior politician was subsequently reported to your good self and the Minister of Public Enterprise? Is what we've been told by Mr. Andre Director true and accurate? We're no longer interested on who is this politician now, because clearly we must move mountains to get the name. But give us a surety if you are investigating this senior politician from June 2022, we are in May. It's almost a year. Can the Hawks take us into confidence whether or not it's true that you have received this information about this corrupt senior politician?
Samuel, we're going to wrap up on Samuel.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and thanks for the responses that we have received so far. It is a fact, Honorable Minister, that your commissioner is not responding satisfactorily. And not only responding in a satisfactory manner, there is an indication that he has known of some information which comes from some report, and that report is an investigation-related report by the former GCEO. And it looks like the former GCEO is correct, that the police have all this kind of information, but they fail to act somewhat. If that is the case in terms of inference, and therefore we ask all these kinds of questions directed on the way he handles responses currently. One, knowing that there is that kind of a report, it is the fact now that he has laid a hand on the report, and the context which has derived the existence of the report is known by a senior officer in the name or in the position of the Commissioner of Police. And that has then caused, through that assignment of a senior personnel, to deal with matters that relate to the outcomes of that kind of a report. In this report which he has given us, there is not a singular statement which relates to the knowledge of that report. So, Honorable Leas is correct that is watering down whatever that relates to matters which are substantive on the criminal instances which could have been out of that kind of a report. Even now, he's still saying the brigadier concerned, the general now, has some knowledge because has made reference to him about such. Then, my honorable minister, do you know anything about this report? Are you aware of any actions taken by your team in relation to this kind of a report? And if so, what are the triple facts of such kind of actions which are undertaken by your team in as far as fighting that crime in Eskom to realize stability in that entity? I'm asking this question because I'm closer into proposing a finding about what the general, the commissioner has indicated or failed to indicate at this stage in the committee itself. So your last line in terms of determination as to what really has occurred in as far as these instances are concerned. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honorable Suweya, and then Honorable Mazamba.
Thank you, Chair. You see, Commissioner, through you, Chair, your responses start to give us questions in relation to what director was alleging and how you reply. So if he says, for example, how do you send somebody to go and investigate? He comes back, he says, I've got the report, they say whoever has it, and you do not give yourself time to look at a report which you had sent somebody to go and look for it. It would occur to me that, for example, if you had given yourself the report from the messenger, it would have clicked to you to say, there is more from director which he can tell us. Then it goes back to the question that I asked. Are you in any process or any step of ensuring that we look for director, you look for him, you do some security assessment, you provide him with the necessary security so that he can come and account to South Africans about what is happening? It would be worrying that he says, I'm a whistleblower, even if he does not officially say that. I would want to speak, and at this stage with all this crisis, you from yourself, all of you, the three entities, there is no platform where you say, how do we do some form of security assessment so that we can bring him to account? And it's worrying that you send me, I come back, I come with a report, I say no, they say whoever received it, you don't give yourself time to read about it. It goes back to what Honorable Somio is saying, that Minister must tell us whether we must do some form of inquiry into what actually you did with the matter. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Leas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleagues have largely dealt with the point, but I'm going to put it in two simple questions. But before I do that, listening to the National Commissioner in terms of the success of the operations, it astounds me then that we need the deployment of soldiers any longer. Why do we deploy the soldiers if the crime rate's coming down and it's a great success? But I don't think that needs a reply, Mr. Chairman. It's a comment on my part. The two questions that really fall in line with what my colleagues have been saying in this last round is, first question is, did Andre de Ruyter inform either you or Brigadier, as he was then, I understand, Berger, that there was a senior politician who was involved in some way or not? Did he inform either you or Brigadier Berger, or even you, Brigadier
General Jacobs.
No, General Jacobs, sorry. The Hawks and as well. If your reply is that any of those persons was informed that there was a possibility of a senior politician being involved, why then is there no investigation taking place?
All right. Just on slide 7 of your presentation, the SAPS presentation, second bullet from the bottom, which is titled the governance structure. It says the priority committee and its functioning is mandated in terms of Net Joints Instruction 68 of 2022. I think that becomes important for us to know what that says, because we are able then to benchmark whether you are successful or not in the responsibilities that you've been given. So it would be really interesting, even if it's a summary of what's the mandate there. Minister, Mabusomyo places a fundamental question, because we seated here now have got very little comfort in the work that has been done. So it boils down to another question. Is there actually political will to deal with these Eskom matters? I say this because there's always bold and sweeping statements that are made when discussing the Eskom matter. And the expectation is that something will follow. And at the heart of this is that I personally don't agree with the Minister of Electricity when he says corruption is not a factor. It is. Criminality in its material facets. So our reliance is that the law enforcement agencies, the SAPS specifically, will lead the charge of investigating these things. Minister, we don't get that sense. Because even for us here who are not even police officers or investigators, can point to things which are very glaring. For example, Kusile Power Station is built on top of a coal mine, New Lago, precisely because the whole notion is to get the coal out of the ground, put it on a conveyor belt into the units and generate electricity. It doesn't happen. But what does happen is that on a daily basis, 700 trucks come into Kusile Power Station bringing in coal. A perfect environment for criminality has been created with the delays in mining at New Lago. But nothing has happened. And the final example I want to remind us of, colleagues, you remember that we were informed that the general manager at Tutuga Power Station walks around the power station clad in a bulletproof vest with 2 protectors. His wife is under 24/7 security. His children are under 24/7 security, including going to school. Because of the acts of criminality taking place at Tutuga, to the point that that power station is only operating between 15 and 17% of its capacity. Because criminality has got its claws deep in there. Now, these are things that are reported at portfolio committees, but you don't get a sense that investigations are moving, arising, resulting in arrests. Now, the major indictment, Minister, is then the president brings in the military as what we can only call an affirmation that the efforts have failed to protect those power stations. Why? Because there is an absence of investigations which exist as a deterrent, pushing back on the frontiers of corruption. From whatever perspective, it's an indictment on the SAPS. Ultimately, the CEO raises issues. We can, of course, probe when he did it, how he did it. General Libya and his team will do that, whether it's within PRECA or not within PRECA. It's fine. All those things all deserve to be dealt with. But those are procedural matters. But what's the response to the substantive content of the allegations that he makes? You find that it's a snail pace if there is actually a pace. So I'm just shifting focus momentarily to the political leadership to say there's a dilemma here. And we don't get a sense that it's receiving the attention that it requires. In fact, I can only say my sense is that the SAPS are dropping the ball here. So can we get responses to the questions, and then Minister, maybe start with your team and then you can conclude, because we'll wrap up at that point. Can we get responses to the 4 sets of questions placed?
Thanks, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Honorable Chairperson, the SET report, as I said, I didn't get a complete report or a report from the Brigadier. He said he went and listened, and according to him, it's not an intelligence report, it's information that he got. So, and he said already he have shared it with the investigation authorities. That was just sufficient for me. I never laid a hand on the report. So the fact that it was given to investigations, I said that was sufficient. And with regard to the security assessment of Mr. De Ruyter, as a whistleblower, Honorable Chair, we'll look for him and do the necessary security assessment that is required, and then take the matter forward in terms of how is he going to be secured. Did he report to me about the involvement of a senior politician? Honorable Chairperson and members, no. The only person he reported is as per the report I gave, where as per the report on, I think it's page 5. Yes, Honorable Chairperson, that is what he reported. There is no senior politician that he reported to me about. What? Okay. Okay. Yeah, Honorable Chair, the Hawks also did not report to me of any knowledge that they are investigating a senior politician, and neither to me also did he report that. The contents of National Instruction 68, I don't have it with me, Honorable Chairperson, on adjoins Instruction 68 of 2022. I'll ask General Jacobs if we have, but normally we know that it deals with our approach to crime combating. Normally we'll talk about the first pillar will be the intelligence collection by ourselves. Second pillar will be the proactive, meaning the prevention part. Third pillar will be your crime combating, where we involve special forces if the intelligence indicate to say whatever things are happening wherever. That's where the special forces comes in. And the last pillar consists, pillar 4, which consists of the investigation, which is divided mostly into two. The first part is the investigation by detectives, which are the cases that we have seen in our report. And the second part is the organized crime approach, which is those cases that are investigated by the DPCI and other entities. But I do acknowledge, yes, we'll go and look at it and provide you with the adjoins instruction, Honorable Chair. It might not contain only what I've said, it might contain more, but we'll make it available. Thanks.
Any other responses? Come in, General Jacobs.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Maybe just a quick response to the comment made by the Honorable Member about the SANDF deployment and the inference drawn that the fact that they must be deployed reflects on the ability of the police and a reflection of failure. We would find a different view on that one. It is a joint operation consisting of all departments, one. But secondly, I think it's important to understand the concept of once we have a situation where there's a complete breakdown, of security arrangements, at the power stations and at Eskom as a whole, despite the fact that they have a huge budget, you then approach it from a perspective to look at investigations, and that obviously takes longer. The second concept is, normally we refer to target hardening, where you harden the specific institutions by putting in more stringent security measures, and the SANDF deployment is part of that particular approach. And the third element is to re-look and develop the security systems within the institution. Therefore, Eskom is part of our system. Currently, we have sent in the National Key Points Inspectorate team to review all the security plans with clear recommendations of all of that. We have reviewed, we have in hand all of the security plans for each of the power stations, and reviewing that with the purpose of looking where we can upgrade and improve the security mechanisms, so that the SANDF deployment is part of the bigger and broader security strategy, but ultimately clearly a pattern of joint operations executed, and it shouldn't therefore reflect as a failure on any particular department, but rather the fact that government as a whole is responding. I submit. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's, okay. The point is that the army is still there. It's the last line of defense of any country. The fact that we've arrived there through net joints or whatever you want to call it. The point is we should not be there, yet we are. So, yeah. So, anyway.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just the question about who was informed by Director of the senior politicians. We've heard the Commissioner wasn't, but what about others?
Yeah, no, we're going to Libby.
Thank you, Chairperson. As I've indicated in the report that came from Director is the one on the 24th, dated the 24th, which he submitted on the 25th. In that report, there is no politicians that he is bringing to our attention. So there is no other report that he has made to the DPCI. Thank you.
Okay. Angifuni ukukuthakazela magaya ngoba busomi akathandi kodwa ke Minister Cele, over to you.
No, thanks very much, Chairperson. We split the responsibility. We split the responsibility. He came here, and I went to the meeting where Hartebe and H was supposed to be, and then you ran away to this one. There was a question from the where you chased away. Why did you take so short time in the meeting? Come from? No, we're not chased away. We went on things that we're supposed to fix as the APP and go back there. So we're fine on that. So there were other things I opted to come to listen to this. Chairperson, political will huge on this matter. Besides being personal on it, political will is huge to deal with the matter. No, I'm not talking about police now. I'm talking about political will. It's huge. Now, it's huge. This matter, it happened that I was invited by the president in the station to talk about this Tutuga. In the delegation of the president, I was invited there by the president. We sat there and we listened. Almost two major things that came from. But the second one came as secondary. Were technical matters that issues of Eskom suffer from. Technical matters, they were raised that many people have left the experienced people have left the organization. There was even a talk of trying to bring them back, those young, bring those that are overseas. That issue was discussed at length of the technical incapacity of the organization to be where it's supposed to be, the question of all station, the maintenance, the staggering of maintenance, and all those things were discussed, Chair. Then, as we go on, the matters of sabotage on that meeting came in this way. There were a few examples made. One example was that coal moved from where it's supposed to the station, and the way will find its way to be changed. I'm sure it has come up on this investigation. These bogus coal farms will be driven there and put the inferior coal, sometimes even the black painted stones. So that came from that discussion, even black, instead of coals, but paint black. So that, as a sabotage, becomes a technical matter because those belts and machines, instead of grinding coal, will grind stones. And then they have a short life. And the maintenance then is pushed in a way that is not supposed to be pushed. Then a second example that was made was spares. That you will go to the paper and all the spares of machines are on the paper. And you go to the warehouse, there is no spares, but money paid. That was the third one was not petrol, man. They don't use petrol. Was diesel. The truck will come to offload the diesel, and it will go where it's supposed to offload the diesel, and stand there that expected time, but doesn't offload a drop, not one drop. Doesn't offload one drop, and it will drive off it will drive off. As they come in, they will be weighed in the gate. Wait, and somebody will write the weight. Sometimes, after those hours, we'll drive on the same gate weight, but the full as it is, but the weight has changed. Sometimes they will use other gates that will be open and not be manned, and go back door. So that was the third one. So this comes on the question then of sabotage. Then the CEO, the president, some of the ministers, this one was there, I think Minister of Enterprise was there. There was no Minister of Enterprise of electricity. The energy was there and all that. And then we were taken to the plant. Though I was not very close, I don't like to walk very close to the president as we walk. I have my reasons. But there was a walk around and all that kind of stuff. One major thing that was shown was ashes. That ashes were not, whether that was not raised as a sabotage. Ashes that were not collected so that you create more space for ashes to come after the coal has been burned, which then delays the burning of coal because there is no space of putting the ash. I think that would be the technical matter rather than the sabotage matter. And why those cars that are collecting would not come, I don't know why they would, those people that are supposed to. So we moved around and we were told that that was one of the best stations. The question of the manager of the station who was in the meeting was raised of him moving around with bodyguards, kids taken to school by bodyguards. It was raised in that meeting. Then some of us, we left ill because we were supposed to come back to the mega city, megawatt city, because that was going to be a secondary visit on the station by the president. The president was going to fly, so some of us we had to drive from there to there. And indeed, we attended that second meeting. I'm the member of the IMC of electricity, chairperson. That is chaired by the deputy president, previous deputy president, and it has been given, I guess, to the present deputy president. And then different ministers and those in that IMC will have to pursue their line function actions and responses. Clearly, it was clear that the law enforcement agencies had to do something at that, and I did not have an information, Chair, that that was happening when I was in that meeting, until later that I received the information that things were already happening there on that environment by the law enforcement agencies. But one had to put more effort to it from the side that you have raised of a political will now. And indeed, somewhere in January.
One second, Minister. I'm not sure what's going on there at the back, but we can't have a meeting within a meeting. If you have got something urgently, please step out.
Somewhere in January, there was a meeting where the initial briefing that one attended shifted that sabotage and criminal activities became primary and technical became secondary. Remember that in the initial briefing, it was the technical issues were primary and later the security issues were secondary. But in that particular meeting changed. And I took some form of exception that all of a sudden there is nothing technically wrong with Eskom to provide electricity, but everything is about criminality. That was Friday. And without really going out, but President was cutting everybody's throat in that meeting, Chairperson. Everybody's throat. That was Friday, I can't remember the date. I requested on Saturday to have a meeting with law enforcement agencies, the commissioner and the Eskom, so that they can put bare what has shifted now that the criminal elements have become primer on the matter. That meeting took place on Saturday. I can't remember the date. I can go back on those dates and share. And I think the delegation, the CEO was in the meeting on Friday, but was not in the meeting on Saturday, because, but I requested that we all sit down to clarify things. The meeting from the side of Eskom was led by Advocate Pillay. Advocate Pillay. Advocate Pillay is the head of the security in the Eskom as a whole. So one listened. The understanding after the meeting was that, Chair, we still had two major problems. They remain technical and criminal after that meeting. For instance, things like, I really know that about, Chair, protect me. No, babayege wenze nje.
Colleagues?
Okay, mabezokhuluma ngiyeke.
No.
Bayeke bakhulume ngiyeke.
No. Let's hear this, because it becomes important to get the thinking of the politicians in this space. It's important. Yeah, so Magaye Nagamena.
Nabo abangangharass, Chair. No, Chair. No. You see,
Ndosi, usafe kulega, usafe ngapa, usafe kulega.
Thanks, Chair. And where the plan of security from the head of security was really laid bare. It was the first time that I heard that the Eskom spent about 2 billion on security matters internally, about 2 billion, with about 6,000 private security companies, individuals, not companies, individuals there. So one tried to find out this 2 billion and this, what are they doing? One did not get the sense really of with the exception that it was a little bit unexplainable. I don't want to go on I'll come back, but I don't want to go on matters of investigation that was not set by the police. But at the end, I was told that the head of security in that company was a person of interest in the police. So it ended there with me. Yes, so, and I will end there with it. So it told me that maybe that's a problem now, that is shifting to be criminal rather than being technical on these matters. But after that, I spoke with the police, I spoke with the National Commissioner to say, National Commissioner, we need to put the shoulder much closer to the wheel from the side of criminality on this matter. Chairperson, I think that also led to the level of the General Jacobs, who then created, or they sat with this team at that headquarters together with the management of Eskom. But I had a sense that which is a sense confirmed, that there were two levels of investigation. It would be level of investigation at the ordinary kind of criminality that you spoke about, those people that they would take point A to point B and all that trucks and put wrong codes instead of correct and all that. And I received the briefing that there were arrests on those matters. At one time, I think about 17 of those people were arrested that deal with coals. They include both those that are suppliers and those that are part of the staff in the company. But also, the second one will be a little bit up level that would have been run by Hawks. In terms of investigations. I know that the former managers, former CEOs, some of those people are arrested, quite a high level of arrest there. You will get these reports on a high level. I know that there are people that are on bail of 300,000. I would say that must be a serious case for you to get a bail of 300,000 and all that. So that is the case of that 745 million and all that. So that will be high level rather than getting the details of what is happening. Chairperson, the question that is raised by Honorable Mr. Somio of this report only comes to my understanding as a matter of the media issues, that there was that. At no time to me that I was briefed about this kind of investigation by whoever that is dealing with that matter. And later I heard that these are the kind of the people that were investigating it. It's a company that is led by the former National Commissioner of the South African Police, I think Mr. Fivers, but you read about those things on the media. The money involved, that was about 15 million. I'm not sure which paid the 50. Okay. I put 1, they put 0. So that's fine. So that's that, about 50 million and all that. So, but even so, one has read on the paper that it was not from the state kind of investigation, was this private. So the questions then of how it came about and all that would not be known except that one has read really on the papers. So the categorical answer on the question of this investigation that I gave to the committee asked by is that this minister did not know anything about that private investigation, but also did not know about who did that until we read those things on the paper. Chairperson, maybe to round up from our side, I would agree, or maybe the question of soldiers. The question of soldiers, Chair, were more on a peripheral rather than the proper investigation, because we were told sometimes that these trucks were hijacked. The coal trucks will be armed people that will say this truck is not going that side, it's going that side. So that will need soldiers then. I remember that we even suggested might be that they will pay one soldier in a truck. So that they bring a correct coal to a correct place rather than bringing wrong coals. And we are told that the real coal were exported overseas. So indeed, there is an organized crime element in the thing. One cannot deny that. There is criminality. But, Chair, the question of technical capabilities, I don't think has been discussed properly. I don't think you called us for that in any way. That is for the other day to report. But I've been asking myself, I did ask, did CEO that has just retired reported to the people that we have put there on a semi-permanent basis about the issue of the politicians? No. I asked individual on them. Everybody said to me, no. All of them. They said, no. Not a single report coming about these individual politicians. I would agree with you, Chair, that it's unacceptable that they can't find Mr. Dire for him to answer on those things. From both sides of the law enforcement leaders, but from the side of a person who made such serious allegations against those individuals. And of late, as one is reading on the papers, understanding again the component of that, of those individuals and human beings that they make and produce that report, leaves much, much to be desired. Maybe that's a discussion for another day on itself. So it does need to be pursued, that kind of information, especially when the sources of it become so much doubted. So that's an issue. But my question is simple. No, I did not know. But the last one, political will, is absolutely there, Chair.
All right. No, thank you very much, Minister. Colleagues, when I bring it to an end, just the following announcements, and then Minister Pravin Gordhan will appear before us on the 17th of May. Tomorrow we have the board of Eskom, and we're going to meet in S12 in the NCOP building, which is a hybrid room, to enable the former chairperson of the board, Prof. Makhuba, to log in. So he's not traveling to Cape Town, so he will log in tomorrow. So that is 10 at 9, Sestombi? 9:30 tomorrow. So S12, the Eskom board. The presidential advisor, Dr. Mfamad, we are securing a date with him as well. As soon as it's available, we will communicate that as well. But so tomorrow is the board, the 17th of May is the Minister of Public Enterprises. The question on the senior politicians is, for now, as we've heard, cleared this side, have gotten their response for Minister Gordhan and Dr. Sidney Mufamadi. Let me take this opportunity, colleagues, to the board tomorrow. The question of the report.
I'm saying, is there any presentation from the board?
Yes, which there is. Sestombi just confirmed now that it's there it will be circulated. Yes. So Eskom has prepared a report. It will be. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Minister and the Deputy Minister, National Commissioner, the head of the Hawks, General Libya, head of SIU, Babu Mtibi, and to all our stakeholders who are here today, the media. Colleagues, thank you very much. Sestombi advises that lunch will be served in the Marx Building restaurant. Now you are all welcome. On that one, the meeting stands adjourned.